Every night before Halloween, an uncanny feeling rushes down my spine. I grew up in a town in Alabama with my little sister Kathy and my dad. Our mom died when we were too young to understand what death is. Since then, Dad raised us with utmost love and care. My sister was a quiet kid, and I was the talkative one. She had difficulties in making friends because of her quiet nature, so I always took her with me whenever I played with my friends. I loved her and felt the need to be there for her all the time. From a very young age, I realized that she could have used some motherly affection from me. She used to dress up in front of the mirror and ask me and Dad how she looked. No matter how funny she looked, we always replied with a smile. "You look like a beautiful young lady." Our compliment ended up putting a smile on her face and joy in our hearts. We went to the same school, so all my friends and kids from our neighborhood knew my sister. Some of them picked on me, saying my sister is weird and she only tags along because no one wants to be the friend of a weirdo. I remember punching Benny when he said this in front of Kathy. Kathy cried a lot that night, and for the first time she said, "I want Mom." My dad loved my mom more than anyone in this world, and her untimely death affected him to such an extent that he refused to remarry ever again. My aunt tried a lot to fix him for a date with her friend, but my dad refused right away. I knew he had another reason to refuse to get married, and that was his children. He thought, no stepmom will ever love us like her own. My dad has sacrificed a lot just to give me and my sister a happy life. Being kids, we generally took part in every community event and everyone in town loved us. It was the month of Halloween, and I was excited to go out trick-or-treating with my friends. I was 6 and Kathy was 4 years old at the time. Kathy was nervous because it was her first Halloween. We decorated our porch with carved pumpkin heads. Dad bought us all the things we put our hands on for Halloween. My best friend Jim and I were sipping on lemonade, sitting on our porch and watching the entire locality buckling up to celebrate Halloween. Kids were running everywhere and people were laughing and decorating the town. Suddenly, I heard Kathy talking to someone. Her room window is right beside where we were sitting. Dad went to get some groceries and I was the man of the house at that point. So, I was pretty aware that Kathy is alone in her room.
I'm here.
Then who is she talking to?
Behind you.
I got up and went to her window. Who are you talking to? I peeked in and saw Kathy was sitting on her bed, holding her teddy bear and staring at the closed door. Her pace turned pale as I caught her off guard. She nodded her head, saying, "No one? Why are you standing outside my window?" I smiled and said, "Dad is going to the market. Jim and I are sitting on the porch. Call me if you need anything." She smiled back, and I came back. The same night, we were having dinner. Dad was cooking steak for us. I was sitting at the dining table and talking to him about our Halloween costume when we heard Kathy humming a tune. I have never heard this tune before, so it felt a bit unusual. She was sitting on the porch braiding her Barbie doll and humming this tune like we weren't even there. I looked at Dad and got surprised. His face was white like a blank sheet. He stopped cooking and asked Kathy, Who taught you this tune?" Kathy looked at us and said, "What tune?" "The tune you were just humming," Dad replied. "I wasn't humming any tune." Her aloof behavior made me confused. I looked at Dad and said, "Why, Dad? What is it about that tune?" Dad got back to his cooking saying, "Nothing. Let's eat." We finished our dinner and went to bed. It was around midnight when I woke up hearing a chuckle from Kathy's room. She was laughing, and I haven't heard her laughing in a long time. I got up and walked to her room to tell her to go to bed. As I opened her bedroom door, I saw her lampshade falling on the floor, creating a loud thud. In that fraction of a second, I didn't fail to notice how the lampshade was levitating in the air, and Kathy laughed seeing that. "What was that?" "What do you mean? How was it on the air?" "No, it wasn't." Standing in her room, I felt extremely cold. Kathy lied down and closed her eyes, ignoring me completely. The next morning, when I told Dad about this, I saw him get worried. But the joy of Halloween distracted us from that one important matter that we shouldn't have overlooked. As the kids came out in the neighborhood, dressed up in their Halloween costumes, they were knocking from house to house with their buckets to collect as much candy as possible. Their cheerful voices echoed in the town as they cried in joy, "Trick or treat!" I wore my favorite Batman costume, and Kathy dressed up as Superman. We came out and met my friends, Jim and Mike, on our way to the sugar hunt. After covering almost every house in our neighborhood, Jim said to go a bit far to find some more houses. Even though Dad told me not to go too far with Kathy. But that one night, I did act like my age. We walked on the empty sidewalks, keeping our locality behind us. There was not much residence nearby, and the deep woods starts onwards too. On that dark Halloween night, I could see Kathy getting scared. She said we should go back, but I assured her nothing will happen. After walking for some minutes more, we came in front of an old house. The house looked completely abandoned, but there was a big pumpkin head placed on the porch. A candle was burning inside it. "Let's go to that house," Jim said. Mike and I thought for a second, but then we all started walking towards the house. I turned back and saw Kathy wasn't following us. She was just standing behind with a freaked out face. I asked her, "What is it?" She said, "We shouldn't be going there. We should go back." I told her to wait near the stairs while we walked to the porch and knocked on the door. We knocked, but no one answered. Mike kicked on the door out of frustration, and it creaked open. The dark hallway stood in front of us. A smell of old house choked my nostrils as the door opened. "Anyone home?" I asked. A long pause went by, and no one replied. We all turned around to leave, just when a woman spoke from the darkness of the hallway. "Come on in." I was about to take the first step when Kathy rushed to me and grabbed my hand, saying, "Don't! It's her! She wants to hurt you!" "Who are you talking about?" "Blue-faced mommy." What? Three of us almost shit our pants hearing this from Kathy. Mike didn't even wait. He turned around and ran away. Jim followed him too. I stood in front of the dark house porch with Kathy. Suddenly, the woman inside spoke again. "Kathy, bring him in." This time, her voice sounded rough and pissed off. Kathy screamed, saying, "You're not my mommy." "Bring him in." When we reached home, she busted into tears holding my dad. She said in a sobbing voice, "I lied to you. Blue-faced mommy taught me that tune. I don't like her anymore, Daddy. She wants you and Henry dead." I could see the fear in my dad's face. He uttered in a fumbling voice, How does she look like?" "Her face is blue and her eyes have no eyelids. She scares me. I don't want her to visit me at night anymore." That night, we all slept in Kathy's room. I remembered my dad shouting in the middle of the night, "We don't need you. Leave me and my family in peace." That Halloween was the last time Kathy talked about blue-faced mommy. I don't know if she was real, and I don't even want to know. But whoever in that house told me to come in surely had bad intentions. "Bring him in."
Hey guys, I see many of you commenting on my videos that this channel deserves 1 million subscribers. But I also see the percent of people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed to the channel. So, if you like the content, want to support my channel, and want to see this channel reach 1 million subscribers, or maybe 500,000 subscribers, then go ahead, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. It's free, and you can always change your mind later.
I can't remember much of my early memories as a kid, but there's one thing I could never forget, is that I really liked clowns. One particular memory that stands out was at my 7th birthday party. There was this boy called Theodore who I knew since kindergarten. He always had this huge crush on me, although I never reciprocated the feeling. Apparently, he finally worked up the courage and told me he liked me during the party. And I remember not caring, as I just left him there, and I ran to find the clown because at the time, it was the only thing I cared about. I remember him staring at me with tears in his eyes, but I was still so fascinated by the clown to care about his feelings. As I grew older, I guess the love for clowns began to fade, and when I was 12, I began taking down all my clown posters from my room. I remember my mom asking me, "Tracy, why are you taking out all your clown-themed things? You love clowns." And I remember telling her, "Well, Mom, I guess clowns aren't cool anymore." Fast forward to 6 years later. I was 18 at the moment. I remember it was on a Tuesday. I had gotten some intel that there was going to be a small gathering at Dylan's house. The party went on pretty long, so I left really late. I remember standing outside in the cold, dark night. There were no cars or taxis coming around. I began to feel really scared as I stood there waiting for at least one taxi to show up. So I began texting my friend Molly, and I told her I was scared, and I remember her telling me, "Don't worry, you'll probably see a taxi soon, and if anything happens, you can bet I'll find you." Now, I know this may be a weird statement, but Molly wasn't lying. I don't know how, but she always knew where I was, be it at a party or at school. I really didn't know how she did it, and every time I asked, she told me, "I'm never telling." I didn't think much of it, as I just assumed she knew me too well since she was my best friend, and that's how she always knew where I was. I stood there for 10 minutes talking to Molly before I started looking for a cab again, but the road was still empty. As I was about to give up, that's when I noticed something. A yellow car that looked a lot like a taxi was parked just down the road. It wasn't moving, so I assumed no one was inside. I waved at it, and immediately the headlights came on and the car began to move. And it stopped right where I was standing. It was dark inside the cab, so I couldn't see the driver's face, but I told him where I was going, and I asked him, "Can you take me there?" He didn't reply to me, as he just nodded his head yes, without saying a word. I got in and heaved a sigh of relief as I was finally going home. We were driving for a long time, so I started chatting with Molly. After a while, I decided to stretch a little, and I finally took my eyes off my phone. And even then, I still couldn't see the driver's face. It wasn't till we passed another streetlight when I finally noticed the bright red ball on his face. I remember thinking to myself, was that a clown nose? We passed another, and I finally got a really good look at him. And that's when I realized my taxi driver was a clown. The feeling of fear immediately set in as I began to frantically look around. I guess he noticed me freaking out, and he said, "Don't be alarmed, Tracy. We're almost there." As he swerved into a forest, the only thing on my mind was, how does he know my name? We didn't drive for much longer after that, as he stopped at a small cabin that was just right in front of the forest. He got out and he ushered me to get out. I hesitated. He then sternly held my hand and pulled me out of the car. He led me to the cabin and ushered me in. It was dark inside, and I could hear him looking for the light switch. As the light finally came on, I didn't know whether to scream or to run, as what I saw transfixed me. It was what seemed to be a shrine decorated with numerous pictures and dolls of me. There were pictures from my childhood, pictures from me in high school. There were also little wooden dolls with face carvings that resembled mine. And I also saw numerous things that went missing through my childhood. I saw my pink bicycle that was stolen, some old diaries I couldn't find, my hairbrushes, and even some of my clothes and underwear. As I looked around more, I also saw all the clown-themed posters I used to design my room. The same ones I threw out when I was 12. They were plastered now, all over the wall. I can't put into words how I was feeling at that moment, as all my life, I literally thought I was just a clumsy person who always lost her things. And as I slowly began to have a breakdown, he finally spoke. "You like it, don't you?" I remember being too scared to speak. He then continued, "I spent most of my life trying to make this perfect for you. I bleached out my skin to make myself more paler for you. I dyed my hair red, and I constantly wear the clown makeup. What do you think, my sweet Tracy?" He said as he came closer and presented himself with a big smile. He looked horrible, like he was terribly sick. His skin was rough and haggard, which I assumed was due to all the clown makeup that was caked on his face. His eyes were bloodshot red, as if the chemicals that the makeup was composed of was stinging his eyes. He looked like he was in terrible pain, but he was smiling. I didn't know what to say as I just said, "Please, can I go home?" He looked extremely hurt as he asked, "But why? Why don't I see the spark in your eyes? Don't you like this? I did it for you." I was confused, and I was getting really frustrated and pissed as I didn't know what he was saying, and he was getting pretty close to me. So instinctively, I shouted, "Get away from me, you sick freak!" And that's when I knew I fucked up. He hit me hard across the face, and I could taste blood in my mouth. "I saw the way you looked at that clown. I saw the spark in your eyes while I cried that day, and I knew this was what you loved. So I became a clown, Tracy. I became this for you." That's when my mind started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. "Theodore?" I said. "You finally remember." "Yes, it's me, Tracy. I've come for your heart once more, and this time, I've come prepared, as I have become what you love most. I felt my heart beating in my chest, as I knew what I said next will determine whether I get out of here alive. I then took a deep breath and said, "Look, Theodore, we can talk about this more calmly. Just let me go, and then we can talk about being friends." The look on his face told me I had said the wrong thing, as he smacked me again. "I didn't wait for you all my life just so we could become friends. You like clowns? You got a clown!" He shouted at me before he proceeded to tear my blouse. I kept on fighting, but my mind told me it was futile, because even if he looked sick, he was really strong, and it was only a matter of time before he'll overpower me. I suddenly let up, and he began to rip my clothes. I then began to think of my family, my mom in particular. My mind drifted off to my friends, and I began to remember Molly. I thought to how she always knew where I was, and I said to myself, too bad she couldn't find me today. And as Theodore was about to have his way with me, the door bust open, and cops grabbed him off me and held him down. They began to surround me, and the following hours seemed like a blur. They took me to the car. They drove me to the station, and right there in the police station, the first person I saw waiting for me was Molly. I immediately rushed to hug her with tears in my eyes. Two cops then entered into the room. They sat me down and asked me questions. I told them everything. Once they finished their questions, the cops told me, "You're really lucky that your friend here phoned in and told us where you were." After that, they left. Molly then told me, "As soon as I saw you stopped replying, I knew something was wrong. So I called your mom to find out if you were home, and she said no. So I looked up your location, and once I saw it, I immediately called the police." I remember asking Molly, "Seriously, you've got to tell me how you knew where I was." And then she finally did. She said, "Remember when we were 14, we went camping with my dad? And that night we were really scared as we had watched a scary movie, so we thought someone will jump out of the woods and grab us? You can't remember, but we both installed the Find My Friends app on our phones that night, just in case anything happened." Well, you totally forgot about it, and I didn't. And as the years went by, that's how I always knew where you were. I actually only used it to find out where the coolest parties and hangouts were, as you were always at those places. Never in a million years did I think I'd use it to save your life. Leave her, you unclean spirit. I condemn you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Leave and go back to hell. I was standing in horror as I watched Father Gabriel perform an exorcism on my wife, Emily. She was screaming and laughing and behaving like a creature from another world. A world where humans don't tread. Her body moved and bent in a horrifying way, and there was nothing I could do to make it all right. She jumped on the bed, sitting like a frog, and said in a demonic voice, "You really love her, don't you, David? But does she love you? I don't think so. Because she did enjoy sleeping with your brother when you were out of town." Shut up! You're lying! You're not my Emily! Leave her body, vermin! Whatever was inside my wife made her look horrifying. Her pupils were small like black dots surfing in a pool of blood. There were deep scratches all over her pretty face. A foul smell came from her bony body that hadn't eaten for at least a week. No doubt, it is the evil that is keeping her alive. She smiled, with her filthy teeth staring at me, and said, "There's nothing you can do to save her now." Father Gabriel sprinkled holy water on her while screaming his prayer once again, and Emily lashed out, making another demonic scream. Every inch of her skin that came in contact with the holy water started to burn to release smoke. She screamed and screamed, and I prayed to God to make this over. I blame myself for what is happening to my dear wife. If not, I bought her that evil Dybbuk box from the garage sale. Everything would have been normal in our life. I couldn't help but get lost in thoughts of those cheerful memories. Even a month back, we were living the life of our dreams until fate changed it all to a nightmare. Emily and I came to this small town hoping for a fresh start. We bought a small house, and honestly, to cut the costs, we bought secondhand furniture to decorate the house. In a small town like this, it wasn't hard to find reusable stuff. One day, we were coming home after buying a beautiful set of wine glasses at a very low price when we saw a garage sale going on in our house next door. We hadn't met our neighbors yet, so we thought it would be a better idea to check out the sale and also socialize a bit. A few people were gathering around the front yard of the house. An old man was sitting on a chair and selling various items. We walked close to him, and he looked at us with scanning eyes. Everyone else was also staring at us, and I whispered to Emily, "Welcome to the neighborhood." She laughed at my joke and started to go through the stuff that was on sale. Wooden chairs, coffee tables, kitchen utensils, dinner sets, mirrors, even dressers were in that collection. It felt like someone decided to get rid of all the things they had and run away. Some of the things seemed strikingly new. Emily bought a bunch of clothes and got busy on her shopping spree. I couldn't hold back my curiosity and asked the man, "This is a lot of stuff. So you all are shifting elsewhere, it seems?" The old man gave me a blank stare and said, "I am just the caretaker of this house. The family who lived here faced a tragic incident. The wife committed suicide after a long-term illness, and the husband left the next day, leaving all this stuff. Before the new tenants come, I have to get rid of these." He spoke in an annoyed tone, like he really wants to get done with these leftovers. I had no idea our neighbor next door went through such a traumatic phase. I was going to ask the man what exactly happened to that wife when I heard Emily's voice. "Wow, this is such a pretty jewelry box." I turned towards her and saw she was holding a small wooden box with an intricate design on its lid. It seemed quite expensive to me because I have seen boxes like this in many antique shops that were worth a lot of money. I looked at the old man and said, "How much is it?" He said in a hesitant voice, You really want that?" Emily nodded her head, yes. He looked at the box and said, "Pay whatever you want." I got a bit suspicious because I expected him to ask a fixed rate for such a crafted piece. Emily said, "We will give you $10. And surprising me, the man accepted the deal right away. Emily bought some clothes and jewelry too. We came home and I couldn't shake off the feeling why that man gave us this antique box at such a low cost. Emily rushed to the bedroom and sat down in front of the mirror. I know now she will put all her jewelry inside that box and pretend like she is a royal queen. I liked this little joy of her in every little thing. But as she tried to open the box, we found the real catch. No matter how hard we tried or how much strength we put in, we couldn't open it. What an idiot I am. I should have checked it before buying. Now I understand why the old man agreed to sell it at $10. Damn it. We can use a knife to try to pry it. No, that'll ruin the craftsmanship. Let it be. I will think of some other ways to open it. Saying this, Emily kept the box on her dressing table and we got busy with our chores. Time went by and I started noticing changes in Emily's behavior. She used to wake up in the middle of the night and sit in front of the mirror staring at the box. It was like she went into a trance. It got me worried because she stopped talking much. Her entire attention revolved around that box. One afternoon, I came home from work to pick up an important file. I walked straight into the bedroom in a hurry, and I saw Emily sitting on the bed and eating something from the box. The lid was surprisingly open. "Oh, so you finally opened the box." Saying this, I was about to step close to her when she turned back. I could see her mouth smeared in blood and her eyes were all white. She giggled and fainted on the floor. The box fell on the floor from her hand, and I found some pretty bizarre stuff inside. There were dried fingernails, blood-filled leeches, strands of dirty hair, and a creepy doll, more like a human figurine made with tattered clothes. There were pins sticking in it. It made me vomit, realizing my wife was eating those leeches, God knows, filled with whose blood. And that was the beginning of this nightmare. When the doctors couldn't help us anymore, I turned towards God. The priest of the local church, Father Gabriel, came to my house and told me that a demonic spirit had latched itself onto my wife. The box wasn't just some pretty jewelry box. In fact, It was a Dybbuk box, used in some ritualistic sacrifice. Whatever was inside that box, my wife set it free, and now it wants her soul. Father Gabriel suggested the only way out of this was the exorcism, and that's why we are giving one last try. I don't want to end up like our next-door neighbor. Now I know the kind wife must have faced the same fate towards which Emily is going. Emily screamed as Father Gabriel went on with his chanting. Our entire house started to shake, but the exorcism can't be stopped. Emily started biting herself vigorously. It was horrifying to watch my jolly, sweet wife tearing off her own flesh like a hungry wolf. I couldn't stand the sight anymore. I screamed, "Whoever you are, just leave my wife alone! Leave her for God's sake!" You do love her, right? You have watched her smile. Now, you'll watch her die. I will eat her heart. Father Gabriel sprinkled the holy water once again and said, "Give me your name." "No, I won't." "Give me your name, evil." The more Father Gabriel asked the spirit to give its identity, the more it hurt Emily. "Please, Father, it'll kill her. Please, do something." I cried with my last hope. What Father Gabriel did next shocked the hell out of me. He jumped on the bed, grabbed Emily by her shoulder, and screamed, "You need one soul, evil. You take mine. Let this poor child go. You let her go." Just then, Emily's mouth opened wide, and she vomited black smug into Father Gabriel's face. After releasing it all, Emily's unconscious body fell on the bed, and I saw Father Gabriel's eyes, turning around, revealing the white part, just like it happened to Emily. But he didn't stop there. He ran to the kitchen and picked up our kitchen knife, yelling, "In the name of Christ, I condemn you back to hell!" and stabbed himself in the stomach again and again until his lifeless body fell on the floor. The fact that Father Gabriel sacrificed his own life to save my wife will always be a painful fact to me. Now we have no other choice than to run away before anyone else finds Father Gabriel dead in our house. I know the cops will never believe us. I can't risk our life once again, as it will be a complete waste of Father Gabriel's huge sacrifice. I burnt the box before leaving the house. Emily is still lying unconscious in the back seat of my car. God knows what's waiting for us now. Like a lot of college students with no idea what to do with their life, I decided to travel the world after my graduation. And by world, I mean whatever country was cheap enough for me to afford on my modest savings. I traveled through a bunch of Eastern European countries where the value of the dollar was high enough for me to get by comfortably enough. I had fun learning about the local culture and meeting new people for a while, but that all changed when I arrived in Romania. There, I met a woman named Anna at a small dive bar. She was sitting at the counter alone, her long black hair neatly tied in immaculate braids, and her pale ivory skin glowing in the dim light. The girl was so far out of my league that I wouldn't have even tried talking to her, had she not greeted me first. She asked me if I was a tourist, and the conversation snowballed from there until we were talking to each other like old friends. She spoke perfectly fluent, but heavily accented English, and I happily regaled her with my only slightly embellished stories of traveling through Eastern Europe. "Wow, you've been all over the place, huh?" "Yeah, I just like to roam around and learn about how people from different cultures live their lives, you know?" "So where are you going after tonight? Hope you're not leaving Romania too soon." "Well, I was planning on going to Ukraine soon, but now I think I might stay here a bit longer." "Are you now? How about you come over to my place for dinner tomorrow? It's not far away from here, and you'll get to know all about my people while you're there." "Yeah, why don't we go tonight? I got time." "Oh, I'd love to, but my sisters won't be free till tomorrow, and they'll be mad if I don't share my catch with them." I don't know if it was the booze talking or if I was just thinking with my lower head at the time, but I took her up on the offer. She wrote some directions and an address down on a napkin and placed it in my hand, her touch lingering a few moments longer than it had to. "Come by at 6 tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you." I grinned like the drunk idiot I was and watched as she sauntered out of the nightclub with her hips swinging behind her. I only realized how stupid it was for me to promise to meet her, a stranger in a foreign country, the next morning, long after the effects of the alcohol wore off. Still, it didn't feel right to just stand her up after promising to meet up with her. I followed the directions written on the napkin Anna gave me and found myself driving through the Romanian countryside in my rented car for about an hour before coming across a little town tucked away in a forest. The directions Anna gave me said that her house was the large one on top of a hill in town. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to find it, but it became difficult to miss once I saw the town for myself. The hill was almost a small mountain, and the house itself was practically a mansion. Locals avoided eye contact with me as I walked past and spoke in hushed whispers behind me that I couldn't understand. I tried to brush it off as them being shy around strangers. Then, out of nowhere, one of the locals approached me. A disheveled old man with wild eyes and wearing tattered clothes ran up to me as I was making my way to the house on the hill. He got right up in my face and let out a stream of Romanian words that I had no chance of deciphering. His breath was foul too, though not from alcohol like I would have expected. It smelled like he'd just eaten an entire clove of garlic before speaking to me. Thinking he was trying to sell me something, I tried to tell him I wasn't interested by using my body language. He wasn't taking no for an answer though. The man grabbed my hand and put something in it before I could pull away. The moment I had it, he ran away without turning back, yelling something in Romanian as he did. I looked down at my hand to find that he just gave me a silver crucifix. I considered just throwing it away right then and there, but the silver looked real and should have fetched a fair price at a pawn shop. So I hung it around my neck and tucked it under my shirt for safekeeping. I trudged up the long steps to the house on the hill and used the heavy brass door knocker to announce my arrival. Moments later, the door opened to reveal a beautiful blonde woman I'd never seen before. "You must be John. Anna told me all about you. I'm Elena, her sister. Come inside. We're looking forward to learning all about you." Thank you, miss. "Well, aren't you polite? Follow me. I'll take you to the dining room. We've been looking forward to having you for dinner." I stepped inside and was surprised by the sheer size of the place. It looked large from the outside, but only once I was inside did I realize just how imposing the place was with its elaborate Baroque architecture and antique furniture. Elena led me down a dark hallway filled with curtained windows and opened a door into a grand dining room made for way more than just the 4 people it would be accommodating. Already sitting at the table looking at me as I entered was Anna and another beautiful woman with red hair whom I assumed was her other sister. "Looks like you've made it after all. For a moment there, I was worried you wouldn't show. There's no chance in hell I'd stand you up." I stepped inside with a smile and immediately noticed something odd. There was a soft but noticeable rattling sound coming from somewhere above me. I looked up at the high ceiling expecting to see some fancy chandelier I could use as a conversation starter. Instead, I let out a cry of horror when I saw over a dozen bodies hanging from their feet on chain hooks attached to the ceiling. Their eyes were rolled into the back of their skulls with pale faces twisted into looks of horror, and their necks had been torn apart by something that drained all the blood from their bodies. "I do hope the decor is to your taste. We'd hate to make a bad impression while having you for dinner." What the hell? Before I could finish, I felt Elena's hand grip my shoulder with strength that didn't match her size. With effortless ease, she pushed me downwards and I was forced onto my knees. The red-headed woman came and grabbed my other shoulder with the same unnatural strength as Elena. They held me down as Anna slowly approached me. Her lips parted into a sadistic smile that showed off her razor-sharp fangs. My heart pounded in my chest as she caressed my cheek with hands that ended in long, claw-like nails. She pulled me into an embrace. I could feel her breath against my neck and braced myself for her bite. Instead, my ears were pierced by a shrill scream that wasn't my own. Anna doubled back in panic. The shape of a cross had burnt through her black dress and seared her flesh. When the red-headed woman let go of my shoulder to go check on Anna, I quickly reached into my shirt with my newly freed hand and pulled out the crucifix the old man had given me. Upon seeing the crucifix, Elena let go of my shoulder and stumbled back in panic. The three sisters hissed and snarled at me as I held up the crucifix towards them, their beautiful faces twisted into monstrous bat-like visages with snarling lips and eyes that glowed red with rage. I backed out of the dining room, never once letting the monstrous women out of my sight while gripping the crucifix so tightly I feared that I'd dent it. Once I was out of the house, I ran. I ran as fast as I could to where I parked my rented car and got the hell out of the town as quickly as I could before buying the next plane ticket back home. It's been years since that incident. I haven't told anyone about it because I doubt anyone would believe me if I did. All I can do is pray that the spirits of those hanging from those hooks in the dining room will find peace in the arms of the Lord, far away from the grasp of Anna and her sisters. This happened when I was 8 years old. I was a hyperactive kid in my childhood. My parents spoiled me to such an extent that I also never hesitated to bully kids less than my age. In a few words, I wasn't a good kid back then. My mom never denied anything that I put my hands into, and my dad thought giving everything to a child is the key to raising them in the right way. How terribly wrong they were. I couldn't make many friends as all the kids in the neighborhood saw me as a menace. Even though their parents complained about my cruel behavior, my parents ignored them and went on saying, I am the best and other kids are just jealous of me. Let me tell you this, when a parent hides the fault of their kid and encourages them, even though they are wrong, that kid can never grow up to be a good human being. My parents made me believe that I own this world, and no matter how many wrongful deeds I do, they'll always be there to save my ass. It was prior to Halloween. The entire town was getting decked up with Halloween decorations. As usual, being the rich, spoiled kid, my dad brought me props enough to cover a huge mansion. I was hanging a huge jack-o'-lantern on the porch when I saw a few neighboring kids gathering on the side of the road talking among themselves. What are you guys up to for tonight? I asked them. Nothing. Just planning which house to hit first for trick-or-treating. Can I come with you guys? No. Leave us alone, you freak. Honestly, that was the first time I realized how everyone hates me except my parents. And trust me, it wasn't a good feeling at all. But I was only 8 and I had no one who could tell me where I was going wrong. Because to my parents, I can never be wrong. I ran to my room, cried in the bathroom for some time, and then went into a full-on raging mode. I decided I will go trick-or-treating alone and I will collect the highest number of candy, more than any other kid. As the night fell, every kid set out on their candy quest, dressing in various Halloween costumes. I lit up all the candles of my pumpkin heads with my dad and went to get ready for my personal adventure. I didn't tell them that the other kids have discarded me to avoid any interference from my parents in this matter. I dressed as Count Dracula. My dad bought me a nice cap with a red collar just like the Count wears. I took my bucket and went out on the road. Kids were in front of every house. I could hear them scream in joy. Trick or treat. Let them be. I will collect on my own. I started walking up to the houses and asking for candy. Because of the notorious reputation that I created in this town, no house owner gave me more than 2 pieces of candy that were too small. One house owner even said, "Why are you asking for candy? Couldn't your dad buy a store? Get off my porch, you rich brat." Tears rolled down my eyes as I couldn't take that anymore. I ran away to hide my miserable self. I ran amidst the woods on that moonlit Halloween night. I didn't care where I was going. I never thought for once that at this hour, the woods aren't safe for an 8-year-old. After running for 10 minutes straight, I sat under a bushy tree and began to sob. I don't know how long I went like that. My concentration broke hearing 2 voices coming from a close distance. I got up and saw a small wooden house lurking at some distance. I could see shadows of a man and a woman on the other side of the window curtain as pale yellow light illuminated them arguing over something. I slowly walked to the house and read the name of the gate, Mr. and Mrs. Ginsburg. The reason I have never heard about them is that they live on the outskirts. I went to the main door and heard them arguing. I am never going to leave you the key. You're a bloody junkie. You don't deserve my hard-earned money. Oh, really? You were living in my house? Don't forget that, old hag. Saying this, Mr. Ginsburg slapped his wife and I heard her screaming while she fell on the floor. The fight got more intense and I was thinking of returning home when I peeked one last time from the porch window. The curtain on the window was tattered from one corner and I could see inside the house clearly from there. Just then, my eyes discovered a bowl full of candy lying on the dining table. I knew it would be easy for me to get candy from them as they won't recognize me. Being the adamant kid I was, I rang the doorbell and heard footsteps stomping on the floor. A rusty-looking man opened the door and exhaled a cloud of smoke from his foul-smelling cigar. What do you want? Trick or treat? There's no treat here. Get lost, you piglet. Saying this, the man slammed the door hard in my face. This is my only chance not to return home empty-handed, so I came up with a plan. I went to the other side of the house searching for the back door. Luckily, there was a dog door adjacent to the back door. I knew they didn't have any dogs because, since I've come here, I haven't heard a single bark. I stood near the back door silently, waiting for one single chance. They were still in the living room, so I knew if I entered the house now, they would definitely catch me. Screaming and shouting, Miss Ginsburg stormed upstairs and her husband too followed. Finally, I thought. I crouched down and entered the house from the dog door. Their arguing voices could still be heard from upstairs. The house had a weird stench, like something had died in there. I thought it better not to waste my time, so I slowly crawled under the dining table and sat there for a few seconds more. When I got absolutely sure that they were not coming downstairs soon, I grabbed the bowl from the table and poured all the candy into my bucket. It was filled with all kinds of sweetness. I even got a big chocolate bar. After emptying the entire bowl, I put it over the table carefully and was about to go back just like I came in when a terrifying scream took place, followed by a loud gunshot. After that, everything got quiet. My heart skipped a beat. Oh my God. Before I could act on this matter, I heard footsteps rushing down the stairs. Out of options, I ran to the living room and rolled under the couch. I saw a pair of rusty brown boots going towards the kitchen sink and opening the tap in a hurry. There was no confusion in me that this man is none other than Mr. Ginsburg. I noticed his boots the first time I saw him. I could hear him washing his hands vigorously. He then walked to the main door and locked it. He did the same thing with the back door as well, and then again went upstairs. Holy crap. Now I can't even walk out from the main door. If he heard me trying to unlock his door, I would be in great trouble. Being an 8-year-old, I tried to keep calm and think about how to get out of this situation. I thought to walk back to the back door again and sneak out from the dog door, but before I could come out, I heard a heavy sound. Something was being dragged down the stairs. Something heavy, as I could hear Mr. Ginsburg's grunting noises like he was pulling down a huge load. There's no way I can walk to the back door now because the stairs face the back door. Lying down under the couch, I saw Mr. Ginsburg dragging down the body of a person. It was none other than his wife, who was alive a few moments back. Dragging her blood-drenched body, Mr. Ginsburg placed it parallelly to the living room couch. Her wide, silent eyes kept staring at me as blood poured out from her open mouth. I was in complete panic. Even though I wanted to, I couldn't cry because that'll make me this madman's next target. The draining blood started to come in my direction, and I slid away to avoid getting touched by it. But after a point, there was no space, and the warm, thick blood turned my white sleeves red. It was the most horrific experience of my life. I then heard Mr. Ginsburg stop near the dining table for a moment. Suddenly, he turned around and said in a grumpy voice, "Did you steal my candies, little piglet?" Oh my God, he knows now. There's no way I am getting out of this situation alive. Come on out, little piglet. I won't hurt you. I have more candy for you. Come on out now. I knew very well that this man is lying, and all he is going to give me is a painful death. He started ransacking the living room to find me. One by one, he was pulling and kicking all the furniture as he realized I was hiding somewhere. As soon as he came near the couch, I jumped out before he could grab me and kicked him in the nuts. He crouched down in pain, and I ran towards the dog door, hovering in fear. I almost came out when he shot at me one more time, but luckily, he missed. The bullet went through my high neck cape, saving my life. I didn't look back, didn't stop because I could hear footsteps chasing me in those dark woods. When I finally saw the lights of our town, I could hear my parents yelling my name. Seeing me gone for such a long time must have worried them. I saw my dad standing in the road, and I ran to him and fainted in his arms. I woke up in my room, surrounded by cops and my sobbing parents. They noticed the bullet hole in my cape and thought some maniac tried to kidnap me. But I told the cops everything I saw in that house. Obviously, Mr. Ginsburg realized I will spit out everything about the crime, so he escaped right away, leaving his dead wife in that house. The cops searched the house, and along with the corpse of Miss Ginsburg, found a rotten dead body of a German Shepherd in their bathroom tub. Mr. Ginsburg is still on the list of most wanted, and I never went trick-or-treating after that. I also changed my behavior and became a quiet kid. I stopped going out much because the last time I entered the wrong house, I almost got killed. My family used to move around a lot when I was young for their jobs. As a result, I've been the new kid at more schools than I can be bothered to count. 9 times out of 10, there'd be some sort of spooky legend about the school grounds or the teachers there. Stuff kids made up to scare each other because they were bored. At some point, I made a hobby out of writing those stories down and occasionally exploring the allegedly haunted parts of school. More often than not, the legends turned out to be a complete waste of time that left me bored at best and in detention at worst. However, there was one exception, and that came from St. Cyprian's Catholic boarding school for boys and girls. It used to be an all-girls school until just a couple of decades ago, so the guy-to-girl ratio was kind of skewed towards the latter. The teachers knew all too well that having a bunch of teenage boys hang around in a school full of girls was a recipe of violating the word of God, along with a couple other things. They made it a point to impart the importance of chastity to the students every time a male student looked at another girl for too long. The girls weren't spared from their judgment either. One time, I wore my skirt a little too high and got an hour-long lecture from a teacher about how girls should dress modestly if they don't want to get molested. The only teacher who didn't treat every girl in class like a potential future prostitute and every boy like a rapist was Mr. Nathan from music class. He was your typical cool teacher who tried and mostly succeeded in making his classes interesting. He was handsome, according to my classmates who couldn't stop gossiping about him. Being in his mid-30s at most, the wrinkles of age had not yet begun to show on his chiseled face. I didn't really care though. The most interesting thing in school for me laid elsewhere. Throughout my first month there, I threw myself into my favorite hobby of gathering stories from around the school. I heard some of the usual suspects like Bloody Mary and the Candyman, but the school had a unique ghost story that caught my attention. A girl had committed suicide several years before I arrived at the school. Her name was Harriet, and she was found hanging from the ceiling of her dorm room by her roommate. The reason she did it varied depending on who I asked. Some say it was because of heartbreak. Others assume she was just another depressed girl who nobody thought to help until it was too late. Whatever the reason behind her tragic death, it is said that her spirit now haunts the now abandoned room 185 in the girls' dormitory. Naturally, I decided that it was my duty as a chronicler of ghost stories to check it out for myself. Since it was a boarding school where most of the students lived on campus, I was able to wait around until it was dark without getting kicked out. I didn't live on campus like the other students, but I hung out with other girls in the dormitory enough times to know my way around it. Room 185 was tucked far away in the left wing of the dormitory, and I noticed that anyone who didn't live in that wing avoided it whenever possible. When I asked why, the girls I spoke with would become tense. Some even admitted to hearing strange noises from the left wing during the night. They sounded genuine in their fear, and it made me all the more interested in finding out what was in the room for myself. Once I mustered up the confidence to break in, I called my parents one day to tell them that I'll be staying late at the boarding school with some friends. While the other girls in the dormitory were either engrossed in their hobbies or dead asleep in their rooms, I lurked through the darkened halls of the building's left wing in search of the fabled room 185 with eyes that had already adjusted to the dark. When I was only a few rooms away from it, a painful choking sound like something struggling to breathe invaded the still silence of the halls. It shocked me a little when I first heard it for myself, but kept my skepticism intact. Once I was in front of the room, I tried the doorknob and was surprised when it turned without issue. I had a lockpicking kit in my pocket and fully intended to use it to break in, yet the room was letting me inside just like that. I pushed the door open and entered. But instead of a dusty old place abandoned by the staff and students, I found a cozy bedroom with sunlight somehow streaming through the window blinds despite it being night. Even more surprisingly, it was occupied. Mr. Nathan was sitting on one of the beds, and across from him on the other bed was a girl around my age with long brown hair. Both of them had serious expressions on their face and didn't even acknowledge my presence. "Oh, sorry," I said, racking my mind for an excuse to why I was there. "I was looking for a different room and—" "We need to get it out of you," Mr. Nathan said to the girl, completely ignoring me. "Nobody can find out about us." "That would be a sin," the girl replied, her hand resting on her stomach. "We've both already done plenty of sinning. That's why we're in this situation in the first place. If you don't get the abortion, both of our lives will be over." A sour look spread across the girl's face. "Would you really do that to our child?" I immediately understood what I was seeing. My instincts told me to flee from the scene as quickly as I could, but I was entranced. Whether it was some supernaturally induced compulsion or just my own morbid curiosity, I couldn't say. The argument between them got more and more heated until Mr. Nathan lunged at the girl and grabbed her by the throat. She couldn't even cry for help. The only thing that came out of her were raspy rattles in a vain attempt to breathe as he squeezed the breath from her lungs. When her body went limp, Mr. Nathan finally let his grip around her neck go. In a panic, he searched through her closet and found a long scarf, which he used to wrap around her bruised neck. Once her neck was wrapped tight, he propped himself on a chair and hung her by the neck from the switched-off ceiling fan. Then, for the first time I got into the room, Mr. Nathan turned to look at me. My breath froze in my lungs when he stepped towards my direction. But when he got to me, he simply walked right through me as if I weren't there. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, waiting to wake up from what I hoped was a bad dream. I was only jolted out of my stupor when I saw movement in the room again. It was the girl, the one who I now know to be Harriet. Her eyes had flown wide open and were bulging out of her skull, almost popping out of its socket from the air pressure behind it. She hadn't been dead when Mr. Nathan strangled her, just passed out. But with her dangling from the ceiling with that scarf around her neck, she would soon be dead for real. I ran towards her and tried to hold up her feet, but my hands passed right through her, like with Mr. Nathan. She tore and scratched at her throat for air, opening deep scratches from which blood soaked the tightly tied scarf, strangling her to death. My body froze in place against my will, and I watched as she suffocated to death. The moment she drew her last raspy breath and her body went limp, the room changed. There were no lights and no one around at all. I was standing in an empty dorm room full of dust. The memory of what had happened there, long gone. I've been seeing and hearing Harriet ever since. Sometimes I'd catch her hanging from the ceiling from the corner of my eye at school, or hear the rattling of her dying breath as I'm trying to sleep. Every time I did, my body would freeze in place, just like it did when I was in that dorm room. Although she couldn't speak to me with that bloody scarf strangling her, I knew exactly what she was trying to tell me. I am going to kill Mr. Nathan for Harriet to be at peace and finally leave me alone. It wasn't hard to get him to trust me. He was very eager to get to know me when I was pretending to like him. Once I kill him, Harriet will finally leave me alone and pass on to whatever God-forsaken afterlife awaits us. I know I should be upset at her for forcing me to become a murderer. But to be honest, after seeing what he put her through, I almost didn't blame her for it. I was 16 when I ran away from home after watching Into the Wild. From a very young age, I had a knack for traveling. The urge to see a new place on my own often pointed me out as a weird kid in school. I remember how I used to go to the oldest cemetery in my hometown and read all the epitaphs just to pass time. I was brave and enjoyed freedom more than anything in the world. My mother was a strict woman who detached herself from any kind of fun after my dad left her for another woman. She could barely trust people, and no matter how much I loved her and felt bad for her, her overprotective nature suffocated me. Taking inspiration from the movie and undergoing a traumatic experience in my own home, I decided to leave home forever. I saved money from my side jobs and took some more from my mother's purse secretly. I left a note, packed a bag in my camping tent, and started on the road. I walked most of the time. When I couldn't walk anymore, I hitchhiked. I worked with whoever agreed to pay me little money and food to go along. My life was hard, but it was better than living in that house. I thought I would go on like this until this happened. After working in a garage for 8 months, I saved good money to go on a solo trip in the Kanema National Park to see the Angel Falls. It is located in South America, and I planned to hike there. I always loved the combination of deep woods and mountains. Visiting this place wasn't easy as the waterfall is located inside an isolated jungle. And me, being a minor and a runaway from home, wasn't an ideal situation to travel to a place like that. But I needed some recluse, so I thought I would be able to take good care of myself. I bought some packaged food and water and started the hike early in the morning. The green, tall mountains stood like watchdogs over a fantasy world. I have never heard so many types of birds singing all at once. The sound of the jungle mixed with wind created a unique atmosphere around me. I carried a map as after a point, GPS stops working in these remote locations. I planned to reach the destination as soon as possible, then come back before nightfall. I knew how deep and untraceable these woods are, so staying here after dark can be the worst scenario for any solo traveler. After walking for 2 hours, when I reached the location, the sun was over my head. The sound of tons of water falling from the top of the mountain is something that can't be expressed in words. Angel Falls stood in front of me with her glamorous splendor. I clicked pictures, dipped my foot in the flowing crystal water. It was so cold. I washed my face and hands in the water from the waterfall. It was noon, so I had time to spare before heading down. The reverted sound of the wild forest made me feel so close to nature. I took out a sandwich that I brought with me. I must have taken 2 or 3 bites when I heard a deep metallic sound resonate in the distance. It was like someone struck a gong with full force. I got up and started to walk in the direction where the sound came from. Pushing plants ahead, I was making my way through the jungle. After walking for half an hour, I got fed up and started to head back. I was halfway when a big drop of water fell from the sky. I looked up and a bolt of huge lightning struck and a heavy rain poured in. I ran to go back, but soon the black clouds covered up the entire sun and a thunderstorm took place. I struggled to find my way for half an hour. I had no other way than to find shelter under a big tree, which was in no way safe amidst a thunderstorm. By the time the rain had started to slow up, the jungle has entered his nightlife. Crickets were chirping with frogs and many other unknown insects. A wild owl was hooting from a high branch nearby. I realized I am lost. I got scared but still calmed myself down and started to think about how to pass the night safely inside this huge forest. Just then, I heard the gong again, and a soft humming sound of a group of people also took place. It was as if they were chanting a weird prayer. Out of options, I followed the sound. After 10 minutes, I saw a small light in the darkness. I walked towards it and found myself standing near a pagoda-style monastery. The light was a small lamp attached to the gate of the monastery. I knocked on the big wooden door. No answer came, not even a single footstep. I knocked again, but this time harder. A subdued whisper took place on the other side. Then, footsteps came walking to the door. Making a creaking sound, the door opened. Finally. At first, I didn't see anything but pitch black darkness inside. Slowly, a pair of bright eyes with gray pupils appeared from the darkness. I would have screamed right there if not the owner of the eyes came out immediately. A tall man dressed like a monk but in white robes stood in front of me. I'm a traveler, get lost in the storm? If I could, please enter. We would be joyful. I followed him inside the monastery. The long corridor stood ahead with candle stands attached to the wall. In the candlelight, I could see the huge ceiling of the monastery decorated intricately. This place is so weird, I thought. He took me to a small room and told me to rest there. Gave me a red robe to change into. All of my clothes were drenched in rain. I freshened up and lied on the bed. I felt glad that I could finally find a place. An hour later, a knock took place on my door. I got up immediately and said, Who is it? The same man entered and spoke. Prophet Denisen is ready to meet you. Please, come with me. He took me to a big room, decorated like a dining hall. There were small tables set up with chairs around the room. 4 monks dressed in the same white robe were sitting there. And in the middle sat a man wearing a red robe just like me. He got up and came towards me. The upper half of his face was under the red hood. He said in a calm voice, Thank you for coming here. I can never pay your debt. Debt? What debt? The first guy said, Prophet Denisen is thanking you as you are about to save his life. We Denisians are grateful to you too. What are you talking about? How am I going to save his life? I replied in an annoyed voice, Because you will complete me. My legs became numb seeing the face of Prophet Denisen. Half of his face was rotten. Maggots were crawling on the side of his eye sockets. A foul smell choked the air of the room. Oh my God! What is going on? Who are you people? I screamed while stepping back. Suddenly, 2 white-robed men lunged at me and pinned me on the wall. The first man who opened the door went outside and brought a heavily sedated teenage boy just about my age. He then handed the boy to Prophet Denisen. He clenched the unconscious boy's shoulder and lifted him in the air. What happened next terrorized me for life. Denisen opened his mouth, stretching it almost to his chest, and started to gulp the boy's head like an enormous snake. He tore his head from his soft neck and started munching on it as blood dripped from his huge mouth. Everyone in the room laughed as their prophet Denisen ate that boy like a chicken. He then looked at me, and I knew I'm next. But one surprising change that I noticed was Denisen's face. Half of his face came back to life, as if eating that boy poured blood and flesh inside those rotten wounds. I realized this man is a demon from hell, and his followers are his worshippers. I turned around and ran towards the exit. They all chased me, and I heard Denisen screaming, Bring him back! He is the last one I need! Beg of the devil! Bring him back! I ran through the corridor, from there to the main gate, and then back to the jungle again. I forgot my clothes, my phone inside that monastery, and ran like a timid deer wearing that robe. When I couldn't run anymore, I fainted on the muddy ground. When I woke up, the sun was in the sky. Last night seemed like a bad dream. I was covered in mud and leaves. There was a huge wound on my forehead. I might have hit something when I fainted last night. I never went back there. I don't know how I managed to climb down. A kind villager gave me a ride to a nearby hospital. I later came to know from the villagers that deep inside this jungle once remained a cult group by the name of Denisians. Their head prophet, Denisen, died one day, and his followers started an ugly voodoo ritual to bring him back. Young boys started to go missing from the village. People believed Denisen's followers sacrificed them to bring him back. They begged and prayed to the devil, but the locals soon got furious. One night, they burnt the entire place down with the followers screaming inside the monastery. Since then, if someone goes there after dark, they still get trapped by their haunting spirit and go missing forever. I don't know what I experienced that night was all in my imagination or a horrifying reality, but I still have that red robe they gave me to wear. It shivers me from the core that this robe was a symbol of presenting me as the sacrificial lamb in front of a devil from hell. My brother Eddie and I loved Halloween. We both had major sweet tooth, so our favorite thing to do on Halloween was trick-or-treating with our friends. On the last Halloween we ever had together, I went as Batman while he went as Superman. All our friends were dressed like superheroes to fit with the theme we had going on for us. There were 5 of us in total, and we went down the same trick-or-treating route we'd used for the last few years. We met the same familiar faces who'd come to expect us and got compliments on our costumes on every house we knocked on. Once we finished with the route, we sat down at a public bench for a small snack break. We'd finished a little earlier than expected, and the night was still young, so none of us felt like going home just yet. Are you guys down for trick-or-treating at a new street tonight? I don't see why not. Yeah, sure. Where do you want to go? I overheard some of the other kids talk about a house with homemade sweets a few blocks down from here. It's that creepy house with the dead tree outside. You guys know it, right? I thought that house was abandoned. Apparently not. It sounded like the candy was really good by the way they talked about it. We all unanimously agreed that it couldn't hurt to visit the house. After all, we were going to be trick-or-treating out in the open in full view of every other trick-or-treater, so we thought it'd be safe enough. Eddie led our group ahead to the house he was talking about. Every kid in the neighborhood knew about the house. But up until then, I'd assumed that it was abandoned too. The lawn was overgrown, and a single dead tree with branches like gnarled grasping hands stood above the tall grass. There were no Halloween decorations, but the old house with its molded faded wood and crumbling tiled roof looked spooky enough without it. The closest thing to a decoration was a hollowed-out pumpkin placed in front of the door with a note reading, "Take only 2." The dusty window beside the door was illuminated from the inside, outlining the silhouette of someone in a witch's hat rocking back and forth on a chair through closed curtains. Inside the hollowed pumpkin were roundish candies wrapped in cheap plastic with no brand. Each of us took 2 candies and went on our way trick-or-treating at every house on the street. Eddie and I arrived back home a little earlier than expected, at around 7 o'clock, and opened the door with a hidden key under the flower pot. Our parents were out that night for work and wouldn't be home until midnight, so we had the place to ourselves in the meantime. In the spirit of the holiday, we both sat on the couch and watched some R-rated horror movies while gorging ourselves on our trick-or-treat candies. Halfway through the movie, Eddie unwrapped the candy from the witch's house. It turned out to be a bright orange piece of candy shaped like a jack-o'-lantern. He tossed it into his mouth, and I saw his eyes go wide. Bro, no kidding. This is delicious. Is it? What flavor is it? I don't know. It's hard to tell. I heard a cracking sound, followed by greedy crunches as my brother chewed on the hard piece of candy. He always did that with hard candy, and I'd be disgusted by it every time. Right after he finished his first jack-o'-lantern candy, he put the other one he got from the house into his mouth before chewing and swallowing it just as quickly. I'm serious. This has got to be the best candy I've ever had. If you say so. We should go get some more at that creepy house. Trick-or-treating time's almost over anyway, so it's not like we'd be taking away from a lot of people. What do you say? Nah, bro, I'm good. You go ahead. I'm happy with my Kit Kat bars. Suit yourself. I'll be back in like an hour. I eventually did end up trying the jack-o'-lantern candy while my brother was out to get more. It had to be the sweetest piece of candy I'd ever eaten, and I couldn't tell what flavor it was supposed to be either. I guessed that it might have been orange or pumpkin flavored, judging by the shape and color, but I couldn't be sure. I ended up eating both of them, but instead of chewing and swallowing like Eddie did, I just let them dissolve in my mouth. By the time I was finished with both of them, I was already satisfied with what I got. Eddie returned home at around 8 o'clock, right as everyone else was calling it a night. His trick-or-treat bag was topped up with the plastic-wrapped pumpkin candy, and he happily munched on them as we continued to watch horror movies on the TV. I didn't bother to ask if he'd share his special candy. I doubt he'd give them to me, and I was content with what I already got anyways. Eddie got sick later that night. Our parents assumed that he just had a bit too much candy that night. It wouldn't have been the first time. I thought the same too, until he started vomiting right before bed. I helped him to the bathroom and rubbed his back as he emptied the contents of his stomach. I tried not to look at his vomit before I flushed it because, gross. But something strange caught my eye as it was being flushed away. Scattered and floating in his sludgy yellow vomit were over a dozen of the jack-o'-lantern candies, still perfectly intact instead of dissolved or even cracked. The sinister black grins and half-closed eyes almost seemed to be mocking my brother as he puked more and more of them out for me to flush down the toilet. Eddie went to bed sicker than ever that night. We shared a bedroom, so I was able to hear every cough and uncomfortable groan he made as we both struggled to go to sleep. Eventually, I did manage to drift off into a dreamless sleep as my brother struggled to find a comfortable position in the bed beside me. I didn't know how long I slept. It might have been minutes or hours for all I knew. I was woken up in the middle of the night by the sound of muffled screaming in the bed beside me. My eyes flew open and I turned my head towards my brother's bed. "Eddie, are you all right?" My blood froze in my veins at what I saw. Standing over my brother, holding one warty hand over his mouth, was an honest-to-God witch. She wore a long black robe that covered every part of her body, save for her gnarled hands with yellow fingernails so long and sharp they looked like claws. Her skin was the color of green bile and covered in warts and boils that looked like they could pop at any moment. In one fluid motion, she dragged a long, sharp fingernail across my brother's stomach. When she did, hundreds of the orange jack-o'-lantern candies spilled out of him, and my brother went silent and still. She shoveled the candy into a black bag, but stopped at the final 2 pieces of candy. She took the last 2 candies and looked at me dead in the eyes with shrunken black pupils. I couldn't move. I couldn't even scream because my brain still refused to process what I'd just seen. The witch placed the final 2 pieces of candy on my nightstand and uttered 2 words that would forever haunt me.
"Take only 2.
The question, "Do you believe in ghosts?" is often asked to people every single day. I would tell you there's no such thing as ghosts. But after hearing this supernatural experience that happened with my own daughter, you too will realize that the so-called fabled ghosts are as real as you and me. It all started about a year ago when my wife and I went to a next-door garage sale. We loved going to garage sales whenever we could, as we always got a good bargain. That day, we saw a beautiful Elmira cupboard sitting in the middle of the garden. We really wanted it, so we asked where it was from, and the seller of the goods said, "It actually belonged to the family who lived here before, and apparently they left it behind when they moved." I wondered why they would leave such a beautiful piece of furniture, as it looked truly exquisite. My wife and I then asked for the price, and we managed to get it for $600. We decided to keep it in our room as it complemented the rest of the furniture there. For a while, I loved the whole thing. But with time, the love began to turn to fear, as ever since we brought it into our house, numerous strange occurrences began to happen. The first strange occurrence started with my 6-year-old daughter, Ellie, who used to still sleep in the same bed as us.
Can you find me?
It was 3 a.m. in the morning,
Can you find
and
me?
I was woken by the numerous whispering noises. I looked around the room to see my daughter sitting directly in front of the Elmira and speaking to it like it was a person. I heard her say,
"Shh, don't talk too loud or you'll wake Daddy and Mommy up."
Shocked at the sight of my 6-year-old daughter sitting in the dark and talking to an inanimate object, I said, "Ellie, what are you doing? Come back to bed." I then watched my daughter bid the Elmira goodnight like it was a person before coming back to bed. The next day, I told my wife about what happened, and we decided to ask our daughter what was going on. Our daughter then replied to us,
"Don't be silly, Daddy. I wasn't talking to the Elmira. I was talking to my friend Hannah, who lives inside."
As my 6-year-old daughter spoke, I realized that she said it with all surety. And it seemed like she wasn't lying about it. As being her father, I knew when she was telling the truth. I then asked her, "And this, your friend Hannah, is she imaginary?" My daughter then laughed and said,
"Stop being silly, Daddy. She's real, and I've seen her."
Perplexed at the confidence our daughter used to answer the question, my wife and I decided to stop prying, as we both assumed she was just going through the imaginary friend stage, as that was the only explanation to it. But as time passed, we realized that there was much more to it, as the strange Elmira continued to cause weird things to happen, things that we could have never imagined. Throughout the following weeks, the strange night talks continued, as at every night, at exactly 3 a.m. on the dot, my daughter would stand up from the bed and proceed to have full-blown conversations with the Elmira. Night after night, I would hear the numerous conversations as my daughter would say things like, "I can't believe your mommy did that. That's very mean. I know it's hot in there, so you can come out now, even if it's for a little while. One day, I'll come inside to play with you." I knew there was something wrong with this, as it all seemed too strange to be a child's antics. So my wife and I began to investigate into the history of the Elmira. We began to ask around, and at the end of the day, we decided to visit the old man in our neighborhood, Old Man Johnson, as we knew he'd know something about the family who once lived in the house next door, as they were the ones who previously owned the strange Elmira. We asked him if he knew anything about the family, and the old man then proceeded to tell my wife and I a morbid tale. "I knew the family who lived there before. I was here when they moved in, and I was here when they left. They were the Williams, and they were a family of 3. Mr. William, his wife, and their beautiful daughter Hannah." Upon hearing the name Hannah, our interest was piqued as we listened more closely. "Apparently, Miss Williams had been cheating as she had an affair with another man. Her daughter Hannah once caught her mother with a man in her father's absence, and to keep the girl quiet, the woman and her lover locked the little girl up inside the Elmira. The girl horrifically died from suffocation, and the mother then told the girl's father that little Hannah was playing inside it and accidentally locked herself up. The man, who was already suspicious of his wife, didn't believe the story, so he carried out an investigation that resulted in the truth coming to light. I saw it all when the woman and lover were taken to jail, and I watched Mr. Williams hastily leave the neighborhood, taking only a few of his belongings with him." When the old man finished his tale, my wife and I were speechless. The story told us everything we needed to know, as it collaborated with the story of the seller who sold us the Elmira in the first place. It also gave us clarity on the background of the Elmira and where it came from, but I felt myself feeling tense as I realized a little girl had died inside it. My wife and I weren't ones to believe in ghosts or spirits, but there were too many mysterious coincidences. So to be on the safe side, we decided to get rid of the Elmira and whatever was living inside of it by the end of the week. The next day was Friday. It was the afternoon, and our daughter Ellie was playing inside our room. We heard laughing while she played, but within minutes, her laughing turned to screams. "Daddy, Daddy, let me out, I'm stuck." I rushed in to see the room empty as I heard my daughter screaming from the inside of the Elmira. I began to try to pry the door open, but it was as if an invisible force was forcefully keeping it shut. I called my wife to quickly get my tools as our daughter was stuck inside the Elmira. So she ran to the shed to get the toolbox. I heard my daughter screaming strange things like, "Get away from me! Leave me alone, Hannah! I don't like this game!" Within minutes, my wife rushed into the room with the tools. I tried to use them, but nothing was working as the Elmira didn't want to open. Things then went creepily silent as my 6-year-old daughter wasn't screaming anymore. My wife began to scream at me to do something as she feared for the worst. So I decided to open the Elmira by force. I ran to the shed to get my axe, and when I came back, I hacked at the Elmira till I completely broke the door. I immediately pulled my now unconscious daughter into my arms, and we rushed her to the hospital. The doctor said that the lack of air was what made her pass out, but she was completely fine as we got her out of the Elmira in time. That night, while my wife stayed at the hospital with our daughter, I went home and removed the Elmira from our room. I took it to the backyard and I burnt it till it was nothing but ash. The strange occurrence shook my wife and I to the core, but we were just glad that our daughter was all right. The next day, Ellie was discharged and we took her home. On the way home, I asked her, "How do you feel, sweetie?" My daughter then replied to me, "I feel fine, Daddy." I knew she said she felt fine, but something felt odd about her as her aura had changed,
and her eyes now had a dull look at them. That night, we all sat down to have dinner as a family. About 30 minutes into the dinner, I said, "Can you please pass the salt, Ellie?" My daughter then looked me dead in the eye and said, "Why do you call me Ellie, Father? That's not my name. I'm Hannah. Remember?"
This happened when I turned 13. It was the same year when my grandfather died. I wasn't very close to him, but I saw my parents get shattered with his untimely demise. I lived with my parents who loved me more than life. My dad worked in real estate, and my mom was a housewife. We moved out to a close neighborhood where my father bought a big enough house to make a fresh start. Moving into a new neighborhood, that too, on the week before your birthday, sucked. I barely had friends, and I had no idea whom to invite. My mom organized a birthday party in our backyard, and my dad invited the entire neighborhood kids. The party was in full swing with my parents trying their best to mix it up with the neighbors. I, on the other hand, was sitting on a swing and watching some mean girls make fun of me standing in the distance. That was the first time I saw Loppy, a fat, chubby clown with a painted white face and a red nose. I was surprised to see him dressed up in an old brown tattered suit. Except for his face, he had no clown-like feature. He stood there with an awkward smile right behind those mean girls. The girls didn't pay attention to him. He walked around the entire party without breaking eye contact with me. When he finally came near me, I asked him, "Did my dad hire you?" He just nodded his head up and down, saying yes. I'm already having a hard time making friends here, and now my dad called a clown at his 13-year-old daughter's birthday? What was he thinking? I got furious and went straight to my dad. He was in the kitchen getting beers. Seeing me all fired up, he asked what happened. And I told him, "I am big enough not to have clowns on my birthday." To my surprise, he answered, he didn't hire any clowns. We both went back to the party, and my eyes searched for Loppy, but he was gone. Since that day, Loppy visits me at my most unexpected moments. I was taking a shower when I felt someone was standing behind the curtains. As I came out, I saw Loppy standing there in my bathroom staring right at the big glass mirror. "What the hell? How did you get inside?" I screamed at him, but he didn't reply. He looked at me with the same awkward face. I came out of the washroom to call my parents, but as I turned back, he was gone. I noticed something was written on the moisture-covered mirror of the bathroom. "I'm Loppy. Can we be friends?" That's how I came to know about his name. Slowly, I started realizing that I'm the only one who can see Loppy. And this realization came in a very horrifying way. One night, around 2 a.m., I woke up feeling thirsty. The jug in my room was empty, so I came downstairs to get myself a glass of water. As my eyes went towards the living room, I froze on the floor. The TV in the living room lost signal while flaunting a snowy screen. An irritating voice came out of it while my mom was passed out on the couch. And there he was, standing right next to her and leaning on her face with his white painted face and red nose. Out of panic and shock, I ended up shouting, "What the hell?" That woke my mom and made Loppy turn his face at me. "What happened, Missy? Why did you scream?" I couldn't speak. Even though my mom woke up, Loppy was still standing beside her and staring directly at me. It scared me to the core that I can perfectly see a fat, creepy clown standing right beside my mom, but she can't. "Missy, are you all right?" Loppy put his finger on his lips and told me not to tell my mom about him. I collected myself, somehow, and replied, Yeah, I'm fine. I just spooked myself." My mom got up and went to her room. As soon as she closed the door of her room, I said in a low but shaking voice, Why can't she see you?" A smile appeared on Loppy's face, flashing his yellow teeth. I again asked him in that same nervous voice, "Are you a ghost?" He nodded his head from left to right, saying no. "Then who are you? How come no one else sees you except me?" I said in a panic. Loppy looked up at the ceiling as if he was trying to listen to something. I followed his eyes, and when I looked back, he was gone again. As more time passed, his sudden appearances started to freak me out even more.
One time, my cousin Lily came to stay with us for a while. I remember being alert 24/7, thinking maybe now I'll see Loppy standing behind her. But when 2 days went by and Loppy still didn't show up, I started to blame my mind for playing these tricks. So far, I haven't told anyone about this red-nosed clown, but Lily was more than a sister to me. I finally decided to open up to her. After dinner, we came into my room. I sat near the window while Lily got comfortable on the bed. I told her, putting aside my hesitation, that there's something I'm experiencing which I haven't shared with anyone yet. She was listening to me with great attention as I went on explaining about Loppy and all the incidents that have happened regarding him. We were talking when all of a sudden, I saw Loppy entering my room. I stopped and stared at him with a terrified face. He looked angry this time, and for the first time, he nodded his head from left to right, hinting not to tell Lily about him. My breathing got heavy, and Lily said in a confused voice, "What is it? I don't want to scare you, but he's in here with us." Lily looked around the room frantically and said in a fumbled voice, "Where? Where is he?" "Standing right behind you." "What? What is he doing?" "Oh, sniffing you." Lily jumped from her bed screaming, and I too started sobbing, holding my face into my hands. Our parents rushed in, and Lily fainted right away. She was taken to the hospital as her pressure dropped rapidly. Everyone thought we just spooked each other. Lily went back to her parents, and she broke all contact with me like I was some freak. I started going mad. I desperately wanted Loppy to stop visiting me, and at the same time, I was paranoid to tell anyone, thinking they'll react the same way my cousin did. Loppy started appearing anywhere and everywhere. In the middle of class, I could see him walk towards my teacher and stand beside her. She had no idea that the entire time she taught, a fat, freaky clown kept staring at her. I might have hidden this turmoil state of mind for more time, if not the final incident with my mom took place. I woke up early that day and the sun was yet to come up. As I opened my eyes, I saw Loppy standing in the dark corner of my room and giggling in silence. When he giggled, his body quivered, teeth flashed out, but no sound came. I never heard his voice. He always resided in silence. I screamed at him in disgust. "Why don't you leave me alone? Just get the hell out of my life. I'm not scared of you. You're just a fat, ugly clown." Hearing me hurling at him, Loppy stopped giggling and his face got serious. He slowly walked out of my room. "Hey, where are you going? Stop messing around in my house." I got up and followed him downstairs. He went straight to my parents' room and stood right next to my sleeping mother. I stood near the door and watched him running his ugly, dirty fingers on my mother's cheek. He then took his face close to her and licked her cheek while giving me his same demonic smile. A flash of an old memory struck me immediately. Something took me back to my childhood days. It was like I could see it all happening in front of my eyes like an old movie. I remembered how I used to play with my grandpa every time we visited him. I saw him in my vision again. I saw myself lying on a couch in the basement while my grandpa caressed my cheek with his ugly fingers. He had the same kind of smile that Loppy had moments back. Just then, I saw my mom entering the basement with a furious face and taking me away at that moment. My grandpa didn't say a word. Instead, he just stood there with a guilty face. Oh my God. I remembered. I finally remember. I screamed in pain and collapsed on the floor sobbing. My parents woke up hearing me cry. I told them everything while drowning in my own tears. My mom hugged me tightly and my dad hid his face into his palm. The reason my parents left their hometown and shifted here was to take me away from the troubling memories that my own grandpa caused me when I was 3 years old. I am glad that my mom saved me that day and they cut all ties with him, learning his evil intentions. Loppy is none other than an image of my suppressed conscience, which represented this terrible fact that my grandpa was a child molester. He was a sick psycho who would have scarred me for life if my parents didn't take the right measures instantly. I hope all parents listen to their children and keep an eye on them in their growing years so that no one can ruin their innocence and childhood in any way. After I confronted my family about Loppy that night, I never saw him again. I wonder if he is still standing behind me, sniffing my hair while I write this story. I have decided against giving my name, as it is in my best interest. And also because I am a full-blown accomplice to the horror you are about to hear. So my alias in this story will be known as Noah. This incident happened over 5 years ago, and I have held on to it throughout all these years. But no matter how much I try, I just can't sleep right. And maybe, just maybe, telling this will remove the huge weight that has been weighing down on my conscience all these years. I worked at KFC for over 12 years. I used to love the place. The smell of the chicken, the chatting customers. Basically, everything about that restaurant made me happy. If I remember correctly, it was on a Thursday, and I had gotten a call from the manager's office. When I went there, I was told that I would soon be promoted to manager. I remember the manager at the time telling me, "Remember, being manager comes with a lot of new responsibilities, and I hope you will be able to handle it the way I have all these years." I remember telling him with a smile, "I am fully sure that I am capable, sir, and I know that I will be able to take on the position." He then replied me in a low, dark tone with, "I really hope you are." During my last weeks as a normal employee, I was given the night shifts. There was a lovely chubby kid called Timmy who always used to come to the restaurant. He would stay there all day till late at night. And since he was a regular customer, I befriended him. I later found out that the reason why he was always at the restaurant was because he hated going home. I remember he told me, "My mom and dad are always fighting. They really don't care about me. So anytime they give me money to eat, I always come here so that I don't have to see them fight." I took a liking to the kid because I sympathized with him. So after my shift, I would always keep him company. Most times, I would sit with him as he ate. One particular thing I remember about the young boy Timmy was that he would always vigorously lick his fingers after eating his food. I would always chuckle about it because it always reminded me of the KFC slogan, "It's finger licking good." So anytime I served him, I always said, "It's so good, you'll lick your fingers." The next day during my second night shift, I saw a man coming in wearing a hoodie. I couldn't see his face, but he had a bad aura and he made the environment tense. He walked up to the counter to order a bucket of chicken. I remember walking up to the table to serve this strange man his food, and he said to me in a low, deep voice, "Are these the finger-licking good ones?" I was confused, but I said, "Yeah, man, I guess so." He then replied, "You sure these are finger-licking good ones? I don't eat any other ones but those." I was creeped out now, but I said with a forced smile, "Yeah, they sure are." With no response, he looked forward into the void and silently began to eat. I went back to the counter, a bit anxious and shaken up. After a while, the man finished his meal, and he left, leaving only me and Timmy in the restaurant. I don't know why, but I heaved a sigh of relief as the environment wasn't tense anymore. The next night was basically the same thing, as the man came in and ordered the same thing he did the night before. And the night after followed in the same order as the man arrived at the same time. Nothing changed until the last night of that week. I was going to be the manager the next day, so it was my last day as a normal worker. I wasn't really doing anything, so I went out for a minute to throw out the trash. And when I came back, I couldn't see anyone. Neither Timmy nor the man was there. I was sure no one left, as I didn't see anyone leave through the front door. I became scared, and that's when I began to hear sounds coming from the kitchen. I waited for a few minutes before I decided to go check it out. As I finally reached the kitchen, I saw the weird man manning the grill while whistling a tune. I remember asking, "What are you doing here? Where's the cook?" The hooded man then replied to me in his usual low voice with, "His shift is over, so it's my turn." I remember being shocked for a minute as he said it with all confidence, as if he was sure of what he was saying. I then quickly said, "I'm sorry, man, but you don't work here and customers aren't allowed back here, so you have to leave." The hooded man just ignored me and continued cooking. I was perplexed as I didn't know what to do. I contemplated forcefully dragging him out of the kitchen, but seeing as he was a huge, unpredictable man, I decided not to. As I was deep in thought, I noticed him bring out a jar from his pocket and begin to slowly add what I assumed to be fries dipped in ketchup into the deep fryer. I couldn't make them out at first glance, but with a closer look, I realized that he was slowly dropping bloody human fingers into the fryer. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing as I slowly began to back away to call the police. And that's when I tripped on something. I quickly looked at what had tripped me, and lying across the floor was young Timmy's corpse. His hands had been mutilated as all his fingers had been cut off. I began to scream as the sight of the child I had befriended on the floor shook me to my core. Within seconds, my manager immediately rushed in. I didn't know he was still around, and I began to say, "Thank God you're here. Please, get help. This man killed this child." And that's when my manager put his hands to his lips and told me to keep quiet. "Shh, you don't want to alert anyone, now do you, Noah?" he said. He then calmly walked to the hooded man and said, "Mr. Cornelius here is just our night chef." That's when the man removed his hoodie, and I saw his face. He had scarrings all over as he looked like a messed up butcher. He was just doing the needful. I was speechless and confused at the same time, but I remember stuttering out, "Are you feeding our customers human fingers?" That's when my manager replied to me with, "Gods, no. You see, Noah, the way fine wine adds a divine taste to dishes is the same way seasoned human fingers add to the taste of chicken." I was still frozen in place and confused. He then continued with, "It's simple. To get that finger-licking good taste, we need good seasoned human fingers as it changes the taste entirely. It's like that special spice. Believe me, you won't understand till you've tried a fresh one from the batch." The cook then offered me a wing to taste. I was still frozen, contemplating whether to scream and run, and that's when my manager said, "These are the new responsibilities that come with being a manager. I was once in your position, Mr. Noah, and I had to choose. And remember, you were the one who said you were ready for it." I don't know why, but there was this sick voice at the back of my head that told me to do it. Maybe it was my selfish human wants, as I really wanted to be the manager. I had subconsciously waited so long for the position, and if keeping one little messed up secret was the price to get what I wanted, so be it. So I did it. I remember taking the wing and eating it, and I realized that everything they said was true, as it had a beautiful sweet taste to it, something I hadn't tasted before. I went on to be the manager of that branch for 5 years, and in that time, I ignored all the missing people posters that were popping up, as I knew what had happened to each and every one of them. Even after all this time, I thought I had silenced my conscience, but I still see Timmy's face every night for the past 5 years. I'm not telling this story for forgiveness, neither am I telling it out of remorse. I'm doing it because I hope telling this story gives me the peace I so desperately need. Halloween is my favorite holiday. I get to dress however I want without anyone judging me and party it up with people just as excited about the holiday as I am. What's not to love? There's this one Halloween party I go to every year at a friend's place. The party starts the moment the sun sets on Halloween and doesn't stop until well into the following morning. This particular year was no different. I got dressed up in my trusty black cape and red waistcoat to match with my girlfriend's black dress and red corset. We helped each other make sure that our fangs were nice and shiny. We got to show them off once a year, so we wanted to make sure they were pearly white as we scared the trick-or-treating kids with them. It was well after sunset by the time my girlfriend and I arrived at the party. There we saw some of the same familiar faces we'd been seeing since forever. Ghouls and goblins and all matters of creatures that went bump at the night were all gathered there to have a good time, chatting amongst themselves and helping themselves to snacks and refreshments arranged by the very gracious werewolf host. There was one face I didn't recognize, though. A disheveled young man stood in a lonely corner of the party, watching everyone else enjoying the party with burning contempt in his eyes. His costume, if you could even call it that, was just a white t-shirt with some blood stains on it and a black trench coat that made him look like a Matrix reject. As much as I loved talking to my old friends, the stranger had me curious. Rarely did we ever get new faces at our little annual celebration. If they weren't invited, they were trespassing on private property. And something about the young man's clear disdain for everyone there made me think the latter was far more likely. While my girlfriend caught up with some witches and fairies, I approached the stranger to make some small talk. "Hey there," I said with a smile. "How are you enjoying the party?" "It sucks," he replied in an instant, "just like everything else in this shithole of a world." "Hey, there's no shame in sucking." I flashed him a smile that showed off my pristine white fangs that I made sure looked extra sharp for the occasion. The young man didn't laugh at my joke. He just grunted and turned his gaze towards some sexy demon girls dancing to Boris Karloff's Monster Mash. "Look at those sluts," he said, "showing off their bodies like bitches in heat, just to be a tease to men they know they'd never date. Whores like them deserve to rot in hell for never giving average men who aren't goddamn models like you a chance." It was at that moment that I realized I was talking to, as the kids call them these days, an incel, more commonly known as a total prick. "You don't really mince words now, do you?" "Why should I?" The young man's gaze shifted back to me. "Why should I care about hurting their feelings when women like them never cared about mine? Women are all the same. They use nice guys like me only to cuck us for chads who won the genetic lottery, like you. You do realize you sound like a complete wanker right now, yes?" "It doesn't matter. Nothing will matter soon enough." A police car passed by the house, its blaring siren briefly lighting the window beside us with red and blue lights. It was accompanied by the sound of a panicked police making an announcement through his car's mounted megaphone. "Citizens, be warned. An active shooter has passed through this area. Stay indoors and lock your doors until the shooter has been apprehended." The warning echoed over and over all throughout the street. For the first time since I met him, the young man smiled. I abruptly realized that he had his hands in his trench coat the entire time we were talking. "You're starting to realize who I am now, aren't you?" At that moment, my girlfriend finished catching up with her friends and came back to me. The young man's eyes widened in impotent anger upon seeing my girlfriend approach. Being as beautiful as she was with that form-fitting corset on, she looked exactly like the kind of woman the young man hated for their reluctance to sleep with him. "Hey, love, who's your new—" Before my girlfriend could finish her sentence, the young man pulled a revolver out of his trench coat and shot her. The bullet hit her right on the forehead, and she was knocked backwards onto the ground by the impact. The young man let out a cackling laugh. "You're all so fucking dead," he cried to everyone at the party, who had stopped what they were doing to look at him. "I'm going to murder all you fuckers, and the world will finally know what happens to pieces of shit like you who look down on people like me." He let out another lengthy, evil laugh that grated on the ears. He only stopped when he realized someone else was laughing alongside him. "Oh man, you're right," said my girlfriend as she picked herself up from the ground. She had a tiny skin-deep scratch on her forehead where he'd shot her, which quickly healed as if it were never there. "The fuck?" The young man turned the revolver towards me instead and let loose the 5 remaining bullets into my chest. I felt bullets slam against my chest and a bit of break skin, but it was nowhere near strong enough to knock me down. "Really, mate?" I said, half joking and half genuinely upset. "This has been my favorite shirt for like a century, and you just had to ruin it." The entire party erupted in laughter. It's good to know that there'll always be people out there with a sense of humor. How did you? Before the man could finish his question, I calmly grabbed the wrist of his gun hand and squeezed it. His bones snapped like dried twigs within my grip, and his revolver clattered onto the floor. He screamed in pain with tears in his eyes until I let go of him. He stumbled backwards and leaned against the wall to support himself as he cradled his shattered wrist. "You'd have better luck killing me with a 2B pencil, mate," I told him. He looked up at me, and I could only see fear in his teary eyes with all the bravado caused by his homicidal hatred gone from his face. "You're really not that bright, are you?" I almost pitied the poor fool at that point. Key word, being almost. "You brought a bloody six-shooter to kill a house full of people. What were you gonna do afterwards? Pistol whip us all to death?" People in the party laughed. It felt nice to have a good crowd. Moreover, I gestured to the rest of the party guests, filled with werewolves and devils and things that go bump in the night. "Don't you think these costumes are a little too realistic?" I've seen a lot in my time, but that look of dawning comprehension on his horrified face is a memory that'll bring a smile to my face for centuries to come. He tried to make a run for it, but the moment his back left the wall, I slapped him across the face with the back of my hand. His entire jaw came off at the hit, and he crumpled to his knees crying and gargling on his own delicious blood. I sometimes forget how fragile humans are. He attempted to scramble towards the door on his knees and one good hand, only for the werewolf host to bring his clawed foot down on his ankle, completely destroying it. I think he tried to beg for his life. Or maybe he was crying for help. It was hard to tell what he was trying to say without a jaw. We all ate well that Halloween night. I used to work part-time at a KFC. I was a broke college student and needed a way to make some pocket money. The pay was all right for the hours I worked, but I worked the closing shift, so I was able to take home any leftovers in the shop and save some money on food too. For all the fuss KFC puts up about their secret 11 herbs and spices, actually, making the chicken takes shockingly little skill. You just batter a bunch of chicken parts in flour and spice mix and dunk it in an oil fryer for a while. If it's undercooked when you take it out, put it back in for a few minutes. If it's overcooked, serve it anyway. It's not like anyone will complain about the quality of the food if they're already willing to eat at a KFC. I never questioned what was inside the spice mix that went into the chicken I served the people every day. I didn't even like the way it tasted all that much. It was good for about the first week of me working there, but after having KFC for dinner every night for the sake of saving money, I started to get sick of it. Still, I kept eating it because, hey, free food is still free food. One day, I went to work as usual, fried a bunch of chicken for a bunch of people who were either regulars or just passing through, and split whatever was left with the other employees to take home. By the time I got home, the grease from the chicken had pooled onto the bottom of the cardboard box I used to carry it, and the once crispy batter had grown soggy during the long car ride. I entered my apartment and sat in front of the TV to eat the KFC chicken I brought back home with me. But I noticed something strange when I took the first bite. Now, I've eaten KFC's fried chicken more times than I care to remember since I started working for them. I knew the taste of KFC like the back of my hand, whether I liked it or not. And this was not what normal KFC chicken tasted like. There was an odd, almost floury sweetness to it that I didn't recognize, and a slightly bitter aftertaste that left my tongue feeling a bit numb. It wasn't bad by any means, just strange. I'm sure that someone who hasn't eaten it almost every day like I had probably wouldn't have noticed the change in flavor. I assumed the flour or spice mix for the last batch must have been a few days past its expiration date, and decided it'd be best if I didn't finish the chicken. I tossed the rest of the chicken out of my apartment window into the alley below for a lucky stray dog to come and eat it. The next night at work, one of my coworkers, let's call him Jerry, chatted with me about the strange tasting chicken as we were working the fryers to make more of the stuff. "Hey, Sally, is it just me, or did the chicken last night taste a little off to you?" "I know what you mean. I couldn't bring myself to finish it. Was the spice expired or something?" "No, I checked the expiration date on the new spices that came in last night. They probably changed the formula without telling anyone to save on costs." "I see. It probably doesn't taste all too different to people who don't eat it every day like we do." "Yeah, to be honest,
I think all of us have been eating way too much fried chicken since we started working here. I think you're right. There's more grease than blood in my veins at this point. How about we grab some actual food after work then? I hear there's a noodle shop nearby that stays open really late. Jerry must have been the smoothest guy on the face of the planet, because I didn't realize he was asking me out on a date until halfway into the date, and didn't even mind when I realized I was on one. I had a good time eating some actual food with a cute guy I liked and got home a little later than usual. Oddly enough, when I got back, the chicken pieces I'd thrown out the previous night were still there. Normally, the stray dogs in my area would fight for each other for even the smallest scraps of expired food. For 3 whole pieces of fried chicken to survive being devoured by them was a miracle, even if it was KFC chicken. Whatever was in that fried chicken, it must have smelled unpleasant enough to the dogs' sensitive noses that even they didn't want to eat it. In contrast, the sales back at the KFC skyrocketed over the next few days. So much so that there wouldn't be any chicken left at the end of the day for any of the employees to take home, even if they wanted to. The people who ate at the KFC changed too. They were the same regulars who came by from time to time since I started working there. But after the chicken began tasting strange, they came by almost every day and started ordering buckets worth of chicken instead of the modestly sized value menu items they usually ordered. Their appearances changed too. Their faces had become pale and filthy with bloodshot eyes that twitched and darted all over the place as they waited for their food. Red dots dotted their bodies like sore insect bites, which they scratched until their overgrown nails became bloody. It only got worse as time went on. Despite eating copious amounts of chicken almost every day, the regulars became skeletally thin with sunken faces that made them look more like walking corpses than people. On one particularly busy night, we ran out of chicken while the restaurant was full of the sickly-looking regulars. One of the regulars came up to the cashier I was tending to at the time. "1 chicken bucket meal, please." "I'm sorry, sir, but we're out of chicken for the night." At that, the man's bloodshot eyes widened in surprise and his lips curled into an angry snarl. "You're out of chicken? Out of chicken?" "We'll be restocked tomorrow, sir, please." You can't do this to us. You can't be out. I need it now." The man's shouting started gaining the attention of the other regulars. But instead of being annoyed, they seemed to be just as concerned as he was about the lack of chicken. The ones who were still eating held their buckets of chicken close, while those who were nearly finished with theirs eyed them with hungry eyes. The next few minutes went by in a flash. The regular who'd been talking to me saw a woman with a nearly full bucket of chicken and lunged at it to grab a drumstick. The moment his hand got near the bucket, the woman grabbed him by the wrist and chomped down on his fingers with unnatural force that severed them clean at the joint. There was a scream from the man, followed by several more from the other customers as they scratched and bit at one another like wild dogs to steal each other's chickens. I retreated back into the kitchen with the other employees and we called the police. Our manager told us that he'll go outside to wait for the police there and left the restaurant through the back door. When the police finally came, the entire place was filled with crazed customers, fighting each other over the fried chicken, which they eagerly ate from the floor. The police had to tase the ones still standing to arrest them, though many of them had to be taken away in an ambulance instead. When I asked the police where the manager who went outside to wait for them was, they looked at me in confusion. They didn't see anyone outside when they got there. The KFC was closed for the next few days for a police investigation. Jerry and I both told the police about how the customers started acting strange ever since the chicken recipe changed. When they analyzed the spice mix we'd been using for the chicken, it tested positive for a highly addictive and very illegal drug. The same kind that was found in the system of every customer who was arrested the night all hell broke loose. Police theorized that the manager must have been putting addictive drugs in the chicken in an attempt to boost sales. It worked, but at the cost of the customer's physical and mental health. And when he realized that he was going to get caught, he ran away and never looked back like the greedy coward he was. I live with the guilt of accidentally ruining the lives of all those people every day. Jerry assures me that
None of us could have known. But he knows that's a lie as well as I do. Had we cared more about our job, we could have saved a lot of people from the life of addiction they are now trapped in. I was looking for an apartment to rent after moving out. My budget was very less as I was struggling to land a moderately paying job. I was on the verge of living on the streets when I ran into an old school friend of mine. She was more of a classmate than a friend, honestly. We rarely talked as she was often pointed out as the weirdest kid in our class. She had a forever sticking smile and cold stare altogether on her pale white face. We never even saw her parents come pick her up from school. Little did I know about her, I almost failed to recognize her at first. I was coming from a part-time job when we kind of bumped into each other on the streets. She took one look at me and said, "Holy, what a surprise." I stopped and stared at her for a while. "Didn't you recognize me? I am Natalie, the weird kid." She smiled while saying that, and I did recognize her right there. I get extremely embarrassed for my bad memory. We went to a coffee shop and, probably for the first time, I finally got to know Natalie as a person. She was working as a waitress in a restaurant and living in her parents' old apartment. "At least I can live there rent-free," Natalie said in a mocking tone. I couldn't laugh because that was a huge deal for me. I told her everything about my condition, and surprisingly, she decided to help me. "Look, I can use a roommate right now and you can pay whatever you are comfortable with." She was so kind and not at all weird. Tears rolled down my eyes as Natalie came out like an angel by offering me a roof over my head. Without wasting a single day, I moved into her apartment. It was an old apartment that needed some repairs, but it was better than I could ask for. There was a huge living room with a kitchen and 2 bedrooms standing on the right and the left, facing oppositely. Damp wallpaper with huge water stains on the wall created a humid atmosphere around the apartment. A soggy, earthly smell constantly swirled into the air we were breathing in. I was unpacking my stuff when I felt a sense of being watched. I turned around and found Natalie standing there with that same big smile and wide eyes. "Hey, sorry, I didn't hear you coming." No one ever does. Anyway, I'll be across the hall, so let me know if you need anything, and I wanted to inform you about something. "Sure, what is it?" My boyfriend has a habit of coming home really late, so don't bother if you hear footsteps and our voices in the middle of the night." "Oh yeah? Cool with me." Natalie smiled and walked away. Even though I acted cool, it came to me as a big surprise that she has a boyfriend. There's a little backstory on this matter, why it surprised me. In high school, we all knew Natalie was obsessed with Jake, just another popular jackass. Her obsession grew to such a level that she wrote love letters with her blood and posted them to Jake's address. It created a huge brawl between the school authorities and Jake's parents. But I felt good to know that she has finally moved on like everyone else. I got a new address and a job in the same week. It wasn't much, but paid better than my previous gigs. I took morning shifts so that I could relax in the evening and finish my diploma online. For being an early riser, I slept like a rock throughout the night. It was 1 week since I moved to Natalie's apartment, and everything was going fine until one night, I woke up hearing laughter outside my room. It took me some time to recollect where I was, and as soon as I did, I could recognize the voice of the person laughing. It was Natalie, no doubt. She was talking to someone in a very romantic way, and I thought maybe she and her boyfriend were chilling on the living room couch. When I came out to leave for work in the morning, I saw Natalie sleeping on the couch. I didn't expect to see that because it seemed like she slept on the couch the entire night. Hearing my footsteps, she woke up and said in an awkward voice, "Sorry, my boyfriend sometimes stinks. Typical men." I didn't say anything and had my breakfast to set out for work. At work, I thought to take Natalie and her boyfriend for a movie treat for being so kind to me. I called her saying, "Hey, would you like to go to a movie tonight? I have got 3 tickets." Without answering my previous question, Natalie asked, 3 tickets? Why?" "For us and your boyfriend. I mean, you guys have been so nice to me, that's why." But Natalie didn't let me finish. She answered in a hurry. "Sorry, we can't go tonight. Maybe some other time, Holly." She disconnected the phone, and I got surprised by this weird behavior of hers. I got a little hurt as she refused me right away. I went home early, canceling all the plans that night. I just wanted to go to bed and sleep. I knocked on the door, but no one answered. I used my key to get inside the apartment. The lights were all turned off like no one's home. I called out to Natalie, but there was no sign of her. Maybe she went out with her boyfriend, whom I know nothing about. The secrecy in her behavior regarding her boyfriend did make me a bit suspicious though. So, without thinking further, I crossed my limit. I went to her room and twisted her doorknob. But unfortunately, it was closed. So I turned around to go to my room when I saw Natalie standing right behind me. Geez, where did you come from? What are you doing here, Holly? Oh, sorry. I was just trying to check if you were sleeping inside because you didn't answer the door. I went out. Can I go to my room now? Sure, of course. I'm sorry. With a highly embarrassed face, I came to my room and closed the door. I already ate, so I changed into my sleep clothes and lied on the bed. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I heard Natalie talking again to her boyfriend. I came out and found her room locked from the inside. I couldn't hold my curiosity anymore. I slowly peeked in from the keyhole, and what I saw gave me goosebumps. Natalie was sitting on a chair, and opposite her sat a dried-out corpse dressed in our school football jersey. The corpse was so old that it was impossible to recognize its face. Natalie held the dried, bony hand of the corpse lying on the table and said, "Oh, Jake, it's nice that we get to spend so much time together. If not, I brought you home after homecoming. Both of us would have been lonely for the rest of our lives." Oh my God, that's Jake? And he's been here like this since homecoming? Natalie got up and kissed the corpse on its lips like she was kissing her boyfriend. She took Jake's corpse in her arms like she was giving him a cozy hug. I couldn't watch this insanity anymore. I slowly came back to my room as quietly as possible and dialed 911. The lady operator took my call and asked, "911, what's your emergency?" "My roommate has a dead guy in her room. She is crazy." "Did she kill that guy?" "I think so. His name was Jake Flanagan. We all studied in the same high school. Please, hurry up. I'm scared of her." "Who are you talking to so late?" "Holly." I turned around and my phone dropped on the floor. Natalie was standing near my door with a small pistol in her hand. "Natalie, listen to me. You don't need to do this, okay?" "Don't be scared of me. Jake didn't feel any pain when I cut his veins. He lied there heavily sedated and his blood flowed away freely. I will do the same for you. Then I'll finally live happy with my boyfriend and my school friend. You'll be an added collection to my family." Her evil eyes gave me a piercing look as she went on explaining this horrifying plan. She escorted me to a room while threatening me with her pistol. For the first time, I entered her room. Candles were lit up like a seance, and the corpse made the air heavy with a reeking smell of rotten meat. She sat me down on another chair and started to tie me up to it. "You'll have no problem here. Ask Jake. He's been here for at least 3 years, and he is very happy. Aren't you, honey?" She looked at the corpse and smiled at her. I realized Natalie never got over her obsession with Jake. It just grew stronger and creepier with time. I screamed, "You are sick, Natalie. You have always been this sick, creepy weirdo. That's why no one ever talked to you in school." She turned at me with her vulturous eyes boiled up in anger. She grabbed a burning candle and came at me without answering anything. I got all freaked out and tried my best to free myself, but she held the candle right under my cheek. The burning flame fried my skin and I screamed in excruciating pain. "Now you must be regretting being so mean to me like everyone else," she said. I started to become numb with pain as the flesh of my right cheek melted away. Blood was all over my clothes, and inhaling the smoke coming from my burnt skin, I felt like throwing up on the floor. After torturing me like this, Natalie picked up the pistol and said, maybe you don't deserve my niceness so much. I might have to bash your brains and dump your body in the lake. She aimed the gun at my forehead and said, "Say goodbye to this cruel world, Holly." Just then, the apartment door slammed open and a loud gunshot took place. Natalie's brains splashed all over me as a cop shot her on the head from behind. The 911 call never disconnected, so the operator could hear whatever was going on in the apartment. She traced my location and the cops arrived in time. Jake's body was returned to his family. His parents broke into tears discovering his death. He was missing for a long time, but they finally got closure on what happened to their son. I stay alone in a studio apartment now. I don't think I will ever be able to live with a roommate in my entire life. My best friend in high school was a guy named Gabe. We even went to the same college but separated afterwards. He went on to travel Europe and Asia while I stayed behind to find a steady job. Although we kept in touch for a while, life eventually got in the way. By the time I found a steady job, I'd almost completely forgotten about him. Then one day I saw a post he made on social media saying that he was holding a garage sale at his old house. I didn't even know he'd returned from his travels, so I thought I'd head over to say hi. I got into my car and drove to where I remembered his house was. Gabe was standing around waiting for people to come by, looking more than a little bored. I parked the car in front of his house and got out to greet him. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up with recognition, and he speed walked towards me. "James, is that you?" "The one and only." "How have you been, man?" "I've been fantastic. Just got back from Spain a few days ago. Decided that I needed to take a little break from traveling." We spent some time catching up and talking about all the places we'd been to. Gabe had been to so many places and saw so many things that I couldn't help but feel a little jealous. I wished I'd been able to travel to other countries like he did. But I wasn't quite as rich as him and had to settle for just visiting other states instead. Man, I wish I could have gone to all those places too. The other states are cool and all, but I would have loved to see the culture in other countries. You don't have to go to other countries to appreciate their culture. Come, there's something I want to show you. Gabe led me to a large leather travel trunk being sold at the garage sale. It clearly seen better days. The deep brown leather had been worn and scratched in many places, probably due to it being tossed around in so many airports. Gabe flicked open the trunk to reveal its contents. Inside were 6 items I didn't recognize, but assumed they had to be from another country. There was some sort of weird yo-yo looking thing, shaped like an hourglass with 2 sticks. A kite with some distinctively Japanese-looking art on it that I assumed was supposed to be a samurai. A simple toy car entirely made out of wood. A small box of cards with what looked like Italian written on it. One of those Russian matryoshka dolls that opened up into many smaller dolls. And strangest of all, a tiny statue of a man with a white shirt and a red cap taking a shit. I couldn't hold back my laughter when I saw it. What the fuck is that? Oh, that's El Cagane. Doesn't that just literally mean the shitter in Spanish? Yep, I got it from Catalonia, Spain. They're really popular there during Christmas. People use them to decorate nativity scenes. That sounds sacrilegious. It's just a difference in culture. Everything in this trunk are souvenirs I got from different countries. For $20, I'll give you the whole thing. Deal, man. I can't wait to put that shitter in my living room. I forked over $20 to Gabe, and after a bit of chatting, went home with my trunk full of exotic goods. When I got home, I immediately put the shitting doll on my shelf in my living room, thinking that it'd make one hell of a conversation starter alongside the matryoshka doll. I didn't know what to do with the rest of the items just yet, and didn't even know what the heck that yo-yo thing was supposed to be yet, so I just put them in a cabinet in the living room for the time being. That's when things started to get weird. On the first night after buying the trunk, I heard the sound of something like whooshing across the air as I was working on my computer in my room. It was the same kind of shrill sound you'd hear if you swiped a stick through the air really fast. Curious and a little worried, I grabbed the basketball bat in my room and went to the living room to investigate. Standing in the middle of my living room playing the hourglass-shaped yo-yo was a girl no older than 8 with long black hair, and a transparent body riddled with a dozen stab wounds. Her eyes were as black as her hair with tears of blood streaming down from them as she balanced the hourglass-shaped yo-yo on the length of string in between two sticks. When she noticed that I'd entered the living room, she stopped playing with the toy and started staring through me with her empty eyes. The girl opened her mouth and a river of ghostly blood spewed from her lips like a waterfall.
Trình bang vô,
What?
trình bang vô, trình bang vô.
The ghostly girl kept repeating the phrase over and over again, though I couldn't understand it. Even if I could, I don't think my fear-addled mind would have been able to process it anyways. I dropped my bat and ran back into my bedroom, where I locked the door and quickly went to bed praying that it was all just a hallucination caused by stress from work. The next day I woke up to find the hourglass-shaped yo-yo lying right in front of my bedroom door. I had half the mind to throw it out right then and there, but the rational side of me urged me to keep my cool and just put it back in the cabinet I kept all the other souvenirs in. I was awoken that very same night by the sound of something lightly tapping on my bedroom door. Despite my better judgment, my curiosity got the best of me, and I eased open my door. On the other side was another ghostly child, this time a boy, though he had the same black eyes streaming with blood as the girl before him. He held the Japanese kite in his hand, which was somehow floating in the air without wind.
助けてください、助けてください。
I didn't even bother to answer. I closed and locked the door before heading straight back to bed. But the moment I laid on my bed, the boy's kite slid under the gap in my door and started floating in my room. I watched in terror as the kite loomed over me with the angry warrior drawn on it, staring me down as the ghostly boy on the other side repeated the same phrase over and over again.
助けてください、助けてください。
I was petrified for about the first hour. After that, it eventually just started getting annoying. The ghost wasn't really doing anything, and if they were trying to scare me, the girl from the previous night had already taken the surprise factor out of it. Eventually, I just fell asleep to the sound of the boy's voice as the pissed-off-looking samurai watched over me. The next 3 nights was more of the same. First, the wooden toy car rolled into my bedroom, set in motion by a ghostly boy with blonde hair.
Snälla hjälp mig, snälla hjälp mig.
Then I woke up to the sound of the Italian deck of cards being shuffled in the middle of the night by the ghost of a brown-haired boy.
Mi aiuti per favore, mi aiuti per favore.
And after that night, I heard the sound of clicking wood as the wooden Matryoshka doll was being disassembled and reassembled by yet another ghostly girl who gave me yet another message I couldn't understand.
Посхильєїста, помоджете мені, посхильєїста, помоджете мені.
By that point, I didn't even care anymore. The ghost had gone from being scary to mildly creepy to just being plain annoying. I couldn't even understand what they were trying to tell me. That was until the final night. I was woken up in the middle of the night, again to the sound of something falling to the ground with a loud thud. Using the process of elimination, I could already tell what it was. I trudged into the living room with an annoyed look on my face, and sure enough, the shitting statue had fallen from the shelf next to the ghostly boy. Okay, you're really scratching the bottom of the barrel here. I'm not going to be afraid of a shitting statue. The ghostly boy looked at me and opened his mouth. Just like all the others, blood poured over his lips before he was able to speak. But unlike them, I was actually able to understand him.
Por favor, ayúdame, por favor, ayúdame.
My eyes widened when I realized what he and the other children must have been saying. Like many kids, I was taught Spanish as a second language in school, and I had plenty of practice using it during my travels through the US. Although the boy spoke with a European accent, I was able to understand it all the same. Por favor, ayúdame. Please help me. Have you kids been asking for help all this time? I could also see the relief of the boy's bloodied face when he realized I could understand him. He continued to speak in Spanish, and this time, I clung onto every word. Your friend, bring him to us, please. Before I could ask why, the body vanished right before my eyes, leaving me dumbfounded. I invited Gabe over to my house the next day. He arrived early in the evening, just as the sun was setting. We made a bit of small talk before sitting down in the living room over a cup of coffee. So, what did you want to talk about? It's about those souvenirs I bought from you. What about them? I think they might be haunted. Gabe raised an eyebrow and set down his cup of coffee, though he didn't seem as surprised or concerned about my sanity as I thought he'd be. What makes you think that? Well, I've been seeing things ever since I brought them into my house. What kind of things? Children. The ghost of them anyways. There were 2 girls and 4 boys. They were all speaking different languages too. Was there anything else strange about them? They all had stab wounds on their bodies. I think they might have been... Before I could finish my sentence, I saw Gabe pull a switchblade from his pocket and lunge right towards me. I didn't have time to react or question what he was doing. But seconds before the tip of his blade could skewer me, a playing card flew at his hand at blinding speed and knocked it out of his hand. Gabe stumbled back in pain, cradling his bleeding arm. One by one, the ghostly children I'd seen the previous nights appeared in the living room, each holding the toy I'd seen them playing with. No, I killed you. I killed all of you. How are you? The string of the Japanese boy's kite wrapped around his neck and tightened before he could finish. As his face was turning blue from suffocation, the Italian boy threw 2 more playing cards at his eyes, completely destroying them. Using her yo-yo like a flail, the Chinese girl smashed the hourglass-shaped toy against Gabe's stomach, forcing him back and making him slip on the Swedish boy's toy wooden card. Once he was down on the floor, the Russian girl with a Matryoshka doll and the Spanish boy with his statue brought their stolen souvenirs down on Gabe's head over and over again until his head was a pile of gore on the floor and his body finally went still. Once it was all over, the children turned to look at me, and for the first time since I'd seen them, they smiled. They all said something in their native tongues before disappearing, and although I only understood what the Spanish boy said, I knew the meaning behind their words. Gracias. Thank you. I became a mom pretty early on in life. I was 24 when I had my son Ryan, and by 26, I had my daughter Jessica. My marriage didn't work out, so I became a single mom as I loved my kids with all my heart. As my kids grew up, I noticed that they particularly had a fondness for the Halloween holiday. Their faces lit up every single time the 31st of October was approaching, and I could see their excitement as I made their costumes. Every year, I threw a Halloween party at our house. I would invite the whole neighborhood to come with their children, and after the first successful party, it soon became a wonderful tradition. Well, it was, till the arrival of our new neighbor, Angus Duncan. Now, Mr. Angus was a peculiar man, as the only thing you could describe him as was an old soul, or he preferred to live in the past. For example, while others used lawnmowers to cut their lawns, Mr. Angus preferred to manually cut his by using a cutlass. And when you tried to call him, he'd tell you to write him using a letter. I remember asking him, "Why don't you like using the new methods, Mr. Angus? They are much more easier." I remember him looking directly at me and replying, "The original is always better." At the time, I didn't know what this truly meant, so I remember laughing it off and saying, "Well, you can't argue with that." Until today, I deeply regret those words. The month of October was quickly approaching, and I had begun to set up the annual Halloween party I had always hosted. I remember sending out all the invites the day before through email, and that's when I remembered about our new neighbor, Mr. Angus. While Mr. Angus didn't have any kids, I thought it'd be rude not to invite him over. Due to his peculiar behavior, he didn't have much friends, so I decided to invite him to the party. I didn't have time to write a letter, so I just walked up to his house and asked him if he wanted to come. I remember saying, "Sorry to disturb you, Mr. Angus, but I normally throw a neighborhood Halloween party. Would you be interested in coming?" I remember he looked irritated at the sound of the word Halloween, and he said, "Halloween? Don't you mean Samhain?" Confused, I replied, "I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean." And that's when he said, "Samhain, Summer's End. You know what? Never mind." You people don't know how to truly celebrate it anyway. My confusion continued to rise, but I just replied with, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's just something I do for the kids, and I thought you'd be interested." His ears picked up at the sound of kids, and that's when he said, "Kids? The children are going to be there?" I was still confused as to why he was now interested, as he knew kids were coming, but I brushed it off and said, "Yeah, it's actually really for them." And that's when he looked at me and said, "I'll be there to show you how to truly celebrate Halloween." And with that, he shut the door. As I walked back home, my mind was still a little fazed at what an odd man he was. But I thought to myself, there's nothing wrong with him. He's just a little different, and there's nothing wrong with that. But come tomorrow, I'd realize how truly different Mr. Angus was. The party started out great as usual. The children were having fun playing around in their costumes, and their parents were chatting away with themselves. Angus arrived in the middle of the party, and he came with a box full of candy that I had never seen before. They weren't wrapped in a wrapper, so I assumed that was odd. I walked up to him and said, "Welcome, Mr. Angus. I was beginning to think you weren't coming." As I spoke, I noticed he wasn't paying attention to me. Instead, he was intensely staring at all the playing children. I began to sense a bit of dread, but I brushed it off as one of his odd behaviors. I then asked him, "Is that candy?" And he said, "Yes, handmade candy from my homeland." I then said, "That's great. I'll just take that from you and place it on the table." And that's when he said, No, I'll give it to the children myself." And with that, he walked away. A feeling told me something wasn't right, but as I was about to follow him, one of the kids broke a lamp, so I became distracted. After a while, I cleaned up the lamp and I was about to go look for him. That's when Mr. Angus appeared, and at the top of his lungs he said, "Come here, kids. I have magical candy for all of you from my hometown." What he said got all the kids' attention, even my children. And that's when they all began to rush him and take the candy he was sharing. They all put candy in their mouths, and by their smiles, I can tell it was really good. In about 3 minutes, the candy was gone, as all the kids had finally taken and finished the candy. I began to think to myself about how it was a great idea to invite Mr. Angus. But in under 2 minutes, I regretted that decision, as the most horrifying scene began to play out before my eyes. The children began to act erratic as they began to gasp for breath, and within seconds, they all began to convulse and fall to the floor. Instinctively, I ran towards my kids, Ryan and Jessica, and I began to hold them. I was confused and scared, and I began to scream, "Somebody get help!" Parents were carrying their children and bolting to the door, but all the doors were locked. The chaos began to increase tenfold, and amidst all of it, we heard Mr. Angus scream, "Witness, Samhain!" Silence filled the room as we all stared at him. And that's when he began to pace the room. Speaking, he said, "Be gladdened, for their sacrifice will protect us from the dark ones. This is the way it has been, and this is the way it should be. The veil is thin, and the journey should be quick. We should all remember death is inevitable. Their sacrifice will be appreciated, and they will be reborn." While he was speaking, upon hearing the words dying and sacrifice, I noticed my kids weren't moving, and I looked around the room to see the same, as the look of pain and confusion was on the face of every single parent. Sobs began to fill the room, as every parent had also noticed what had happened. That's when Mr. Angus began to speak again. "Don't cry. I did this. I did this for you, for us. I had to. They had to be sacrificed so you could always bear more children." As he said the words, "I did this," the room became tense as the horrific realization dawned on us. The homemade candy. It didn't take long before the men rushed towards Mr. Angus, and they began to subdue him. The doors were broken down, and numerous calls were made. Within minutes, the police and the paramedics were flooding through the house. Deep down, I knew it was already pointless, as I held the cold corpse of my 2 kids in my arms. The following weeks were filled with numerous investigations and questioning. I was called to give a statement, and I told the policemen everything that I knew. By the time the investigation was finished, We were given reports, and we were told that Mr. Angus was a man with Celtic roots, and he was one of the few people who still practiced Celtic paganism. One of the cops said, "Samhain was the origin of Halloween. Old Celtics believed that on the 31st of October, the veil between our world and the world of the dead becomes thin." According to research, they also believed that evil and troubled spirits could also come over. So to stop that, they performed animal sacrifices in order to appease these spirits. Mr. Angus himself confirmed this as his motive, and he knew he had to perform a sacrifice. But unlike the Celtics, he knew he didn't have time to gather animals, so his twisted mind decided to use the children as a sacrifice, which is why high traces of cyanide were found in the corpses of all 34 children, as the candy he made was laced with them. Mr. Angus was given life imprisonment, but even then, I felt like the justice system failed me, as I knew filth like him deserved to die. I buried my 7-year-old son Ryan and my 5-year-old daughter Jessica. Even after 5 years, there is no stopping the pain. It also stings every time I heard someone say, "The original is always better." I used to work in a KFC a few years back. Later, I went back to my hometown, which is why I left the job. But this is not the only reason why I got fed up with the job. Common dine-outs like this often see customers of all kinds. So, this one-time experience kind of terrorized me for life. I worked at the counter as a cashier, so I had to deal with the customers directly. One night, I was sitting behind the counter and counting the cash at the end of the day when I heard the entrance door fly open. 2 boys came inside. One had red hair and a pale complexion, while the other had a bun tied with dirty long hairs dangling from his oily head. They were about 15 or 16 years old. Both of them had a very unclean presence. Their clothes seemed like they hadn't been washed in a long time. I could see dirt in their fingernails. A bad odor took over as soon as they approached the counter. "A bucket of fried chicken, please," the red-haired boy said in a cold voice while raising a $20 note at me. The boy with the bun wore a dirty sweatshirt even on that hot summer night. As they stood there like 2 fishy customers that I would never want to meet at the end of my late-night shift, I realized troubles are waiting for me. I told them to take a seat and went inside to tell Ralph about our last order. Ralph was the night cook who joined recently. While giving him the orders, I told him how sketchy those boys looked to me. Ralph laughed and said, "I'm sure they won't be any petty thieves, Lucy. You go keep an eye on them. I will be there with the fried chicken soon." I went back and saw those 2 boys were wandering around the restaurant like they were walking in their homes. The red-haired boy was observing each detail of the shop. I even saw him noticing the security camera too attentively. With their behavior, I could tell they had some other intention. After wandering around for some time, they sat at a table nearby and started to talk in a low but deep voice. I could hear their full conversation, but I heard them addressing each other by the name of Jackson and Liam. The red-haired boy was Jackson and the other one was Liam. So far, I didn't hear Liam say a single word to me. He was the quieter one and also the most mysterious among the 2. He had lots of cut marks on his face and every 5 seconds, looking at me in a very creepy way. I even saw him licking his lips while he laid his eyes on me. The cold stare and their inaudible whispers were making me even more anxious. Suddenly, Liam got up and went out of the restaurant. I wanted to ignore it, as this was none of my business, but I still asked, "Where did your friend go?" Jackson smiled and said, "To take a leak." "How long will it take?" I smiled awkwardly and said, Not much. Our cook will bring the food soon. You guys are our last customers for the night, hence, it's taking time to arrange everything before closing the shop." After a few minutes, Liam came back and sat beside his friend, just like before. I waited and waited for Ralph to come out, but time went away. My level of patience gave in, and I got up and walked to the kitchen. The minute I stepped inside the kitchen, the electricity went out. It wasn't a power cut, as I could see the streetlight on the highway shining bright. Someone purposefully turned off the power switch. I checked into my pockets and took out my phone. While trying to turn on the flashlight on my phone, I took a step further in the dark and stepped onto a gooey liquid that had a weird metallic stench. "Damn it, Ralph! Didn't you clean the kitchen?" I screamed in the dark. I switched on my flashlight, and as it hit the floor, I saw what I just stepped in. There was a pool of blood on the kitchen floor that came from a deep stab wound on the body of our night cook, Ralph. Oh my God. I turned around to leave when I got face to face with Jackson. He stood there with a blood-soaked knife in his hand and smiled at me. I remembered there's a back door, so I turned around to escape from there. I was a few inches away from the back door when Liam entered the kitchen. So this is what he did when he went outside. My God. He entered the kitchen from the back door and stabbed poor Ralph to death. These young boys are cold-blooded criminals. They cornered me from both ends, and I knew now it would be my turn to get slashed at their hands. What do you want? I said in a terrified voice. Look, Liam, she is willing to give us what we want, Jackson said while laughing like a psycho. Let's go to the counter, he said and raised the sharp, bloody knife at me. I tried to be calm because one wrong move can silence me forever. They escorted me back to the eating area, and when we reached near the counter, Liam pushed me from behind. I tripped accidentally and hit my head on the marble desk. Blood rushed down immediately and I started crying in pain. Just tell me what you guys want. Please, just let me go. Yes. We don't want to murder a poor, weak woman. It doesn't worth anyway. We just want the money from the cash register. That's all. You guys are doing this for some money? There's still time. You two are too young to destroy your life like this. Do you have any idea what the cops will do to you if they ever catch you? Suddenly, I saw Liam's face turn pale. For the first time, he looked scared. He said in a fumbling voice, Maybe we should just leave, Jackson. I don't want to go to prison. Jackson grabbed his shoulder and screamed furiously. Don't chicken out now. This bitch is just trying to mess with us. We won't get caught. He slapped me hard across my cheek, making my lips bleed, and said, Just give us the money. We don't need your lecture, lady. Jackson gave the knife to Liam and snatched my phone from my hand. Now go to the cash register. Go, he screamed. The flashlight on my phone was the only source of light, till now. I knew these boys turned off the power so that the security camera fails to record them. But I didn't want them to go so easily. An idea came to my mind. I stopped and said, the cash register is automated. I need to access the computer to open it. I hope you're not trying to be smart with me, lady, because I'll cut your throat and then dump your face inside that hot fryer in the kitchen. I made them understand that is the case when it really wasn't. They whispered to each other for a few more seconds, and Liam went inside the kitchen to turn on the power. As soon as the power came on, Jackson said, Turn off the security camera. I know you can do that from your computer. Do it, now! I could have easily faked that and let their entire act get recorded by the camera. But I actually did turn it off, because my plan was something more sinister. I opened the cash register and loaded the money inside a bag. As Jackson came close to take the bag from me, I grabbed his head and slammed it hard on the desk. The sudden strike hit him so hard that he didn't even get the chance to scream. Half of his face got smashed as flesh and blood poured out of his wounds. I took my phone from his hands, but didn't call a 911 yet. Liam walked in from the kitchen and got shot, realizing the tables have turned. He ran towards the exit at full speed, and I was ready for my next move. He was inches away from me as he had to walk past the counter to reach the entrance. That's when I threw chili flakes on his face. I had already taken them from the kitchen when these two dumb boys were heckling me in the dark. He screamed in burning pain and fell on the floor. I ran at him and snatched the knife from his hand. I stabbed them both to death. I closed the store, cleaned all the mess, and wrapped their bodies in garbage bags. There's an incinerator in the basement to burn the waste. I called 911 now and hid their bodies inside the incinerator. The cops came and took my account on a robbery done by two mad young boys. The security camera had the footage of them entering and wandering inside the restaurant in the very beginning. The cops identified them as escaped thugs who had past records of burglary and other crimes. The story flashed in the morning news as two boys, murdered the night cook, and tortured a lady employee of KFC, then took all the money and ran away. I went back the next day and burnt their bodies in my free time. Only I had the access to the basement, so my secret remained pretty safe. I continued working there for a month or two, and then left the job for a fresh start. The boys are still on the wanted list. I am still the poor victim in everyone's eyes, when in reality, I got away with murder. Clowns get a bad rap. I should know, because I am one. I've been working as a clown for 10 odd years now. There's a lot more money in it than you'd think. Though, most clowns don't do it for the money. And I wouldn't trust the ones that do. People may look down on me for my job, but that's all right. Being made fun of and demeaned is what I get paid to do. And I've been able to put a roof over my head with it. Well, until recently, that is. I worked freelance, so the pay wasn't consistent. But I enjoyed the freedom that came with working freelance, and I made enough money each month to live comfortably. That is until the new It movie came out, to the dismay of actual clowns everywhere. Scary clowns were in the public consciousness again, with the release of this new remake, just as people were starting to forget about the book and miniseries that came before it. The damn idiots who kept dressing up in clown costumes no self-respecting clown would wear to scare or assault people on Halloween didn't help matters either. It got to the point where I was worried I'd get kicked out of my apartment because the jobs weren't coming in as often as they used to. Still, I was doing better than a lot of my old friends were. We didn't go to the best high school when we were little. Those who actually managed to graduate rarely went to college afterwards. The ones who couldn't find meager jobs to support themselves fell into hard times with even harder drugs. Steve was one of the latter. He'd lost touch with most of his friends once he started getting into drugs and bad people. But I always made it a point to check in on him from time to time. We were best friends in high school, and he helped defend me, the weird, scrawny kid, from bullies more times than I can count. I thought it was the least I could do for him. We would meet up at least once a month for a drink at our favorite bar, where we'd talk about how life's been treating us. "I just can't take it anymore, man," Steve said one particular emotional night. "I've tried going legit, but I can't find a job no matter how hard I try. Even fucking McDonald's won't have me." An idea popped into my mind. An absurd one. But it was the only one I had that might have been helpful, and there didn't seem to be many other options. "Why don't you become a clown?" Steve stared at me like I'd lost my mind, not knowing that I'd lost it a long time ago when I chose to humiliate myself in front of kids for a living. "You're joking, right?" "Of course I am. I'm a clown too, remember? Doesn't mean I'm not serious, though." After a lot of convincing and half fully jokingly throwing around ideas for his clown persona, Steve relented and decided to give it a try. I helped him come up with his clown persona to use while performing. In clown mode, he'd be Stevie Strong, a kind-hearted himbo oaf who did his best to help people and children, only to fail in comedic ways. I showed him the ins and outs of freelancing and took him to a few of my own gigs to help him get a feel for clowning. He picked it up surprisingly fast, and soon he was seeking out and performing gigs on his own without my help. I couldn't be happier for him. And then the second It movie came out. With the idea of scary clowns once again fresh in people's mind, my job offers dried up. If things didn't change soon, I was going to get evicted from my apartment for being behind on rent. It was Steve's turn to help me. At our monthly meetup at the bar, he told me he wanted to help me out by showing me a lucrative side gig he found through his clowning job. "It's the least I can do for you," he told me. We went to his house in the city where he said he did his side gig. I followed him inside the strangely large house, and he led me down his basement. Alarm bells would have started going had it been someone else, but this was Steve. I'd known this guy my entire life and just assumed that he was showing me his workplace. Turns out, I didn't know him as well as I thought I did. Inside the basement was what looked like a jail cell, its contents obscured in the shadows casted by the single hanging light bulb above us. "Stay behind the bars," he told me. "I'll show you how to make some real money working with children." I didn't know what the hell he meant by that, but I did as he told me and waited behind the bars as he descended into the darkness of the jail cell. Moments later, the cell lit up and I was able to see what was in it for the first time. The walls were lined with work tools like pliers, saws, and hammers. The blackish red stains on them told me they probably hadn't been used for their intended purposes. Tied up and gagged in a wooden chair in the middle of the cell was a young boy no older than 12. A laptop on a table lay opposite to him. Steve was at the laptop, clicking through a website full of gruesome images of mutilated bodies. He was in a clown costume, though not the one he used for gigs. It was a cheap one-piece clown jumper, covered in bloodstains, and instead of proper makeup, he wore a hideous rubber mask that showed a twisted image of what a clown really should have been. He looked exactly like the kind of scary clown that was putting me out of a job. Steve! My eyes drifted to the tied-up child, my body frozen in shock by the surreality of it all. What are you? He held up a single finger to the lips of his clown mask and let out a soft shh. I complied, not wanting to test his patience with him in that scary-ass outfit. Part of me still wanted to believe that this was all one bad joke he was pulling, that I could give him shit for later. He turned the webcam of his laptop on and started a live stream on the website that immediately received over 1,000 live viewers. When the camera light turned red, he stepped back and smiled at the camera. Hey guys, it's your favorite clown, Sal the Sadist, here to put on another show for your enjoyment. He walked over to the tied-up boy and gripped him tight by the shoulders. Today's guest is Little Larry. Now, Little Larry's been a bad boy. He's been bullying one of his friends at school. His friend's parents are very cross with him, so they kindly suggested he be our guest today. The live stream chat immediately exploded with messages condemning the boy to death for being a bully. My, someone's popular. Say hi to your fans, Larry. Steve yanked the sock gag out of the boy's mouth. Please, let me out of here, screamed the little boy with tears streaming down his eyes. A donation of over $1,000 popped up on the live stream chat. Attached to it was the message, "Rip the crybaby's eyes out." Unable or unwilling to process what I was seeing, I could only watch in disbelief as the man I thought was my friend took a pair of pliers from the walls and used it to tear one of the boy's eyes out. The eyeball came out perfectly intact, though the red connective tissue behind it had been torn out from the boy's skull. I'd seen enough. I dashed into the jail cell. I knew I couldn't take Steve on in a fist fight, but I was fast thanks to all the acrobatic tricks I did for my clown routine. Before he could react, I grabbed a hammer from the wall and knocked him over the head with it. It pained my heart to see the look of shock and betrayal in his eyes, but I couldn't just let him kill a little boy right in front of me. As he lay disoriented on the ground, I untied the boy from the chair and carried him out of the house as quickly as I could. Once we were a good distance away, I called the police. When the police got there, they found Steve unconscious from the blow I landed on his head and the dark web live stream still active. When a police officer went to turn it off, he found an entire dark web archive of Steve in his Sal the Sadist clown costume, torturing children for the entertainment of sickos around the world. Steve was arrested, and once news of the killer clown who kidnapped kids to kill them got around, nobody in my area trusted clowns anymore. I lost my apartment, my best friend, and my livelihood. To this day, I regret ever telling Steve he should become a clown and giving him the opportunity to kidnap his victims. There is no such thing as a perfect roommate, but I do believe I was lucky enough to have found one. His name was Benjamin, and he was more than a brother to me. I started college about 3 years ago. My dad owned a huge apartment that was on the college campus, and he told me I could use it for accommodation. I stayed there alone during my first year, as I thought that it'd be better that way. But I eventually began the quest to look for a roommate. It took me a while to find someone, as everyone I interviewed seemed wrong. Well, everyone till Benjamin. I had met him the week before in one of my classes, and he was the perfect mix of everything. He was cool and he had a chill and calm aura. He was also social, as he had a lot of different friend groups. And he was really smart, as he helped me in a lot of my classes. One afternoon, during a class, I asked him to be my roommate, and he agreed. And after the amazing first year, we were like brothers. I remember once telling him, "Hey Benji, I'm so glad I met you, man. You are one perfect dude." I remember him replying to me with a weird look in his eyes, saying, "Nah, man, no one is perfect, especially not me." At that time, I didn't understand what he meant by that, as I didn't agree with him. But it took me 3 years before I came to realize that no one is really who they seem to be. After 3 years of amazing nights, great parties, and many great memories with Benjamin, the year 2020 came with a different tune and a slew of surprises. The unexpected lockdown being one of them. And while I know this affected everyone, it affected some more than others, as it began to bring out a side of my roommate I had never seen before. Within the first weeks, my roommate Benjamin had become a completely different person. The person who was once calm became highly irritable. His eyes were always puffy and red, and he always seemed anxious. He began to avoid me entirely. He also didn't eat right, and he spent most of his time locked up in his room. I tried talking to him numerous times, but I was always pushed away. One night, I remember waking up half asleep. My eyes were foggy, but out of the corner of my eye, I could have sworn I saw Benjamin diving his nose into what seemed to be a hamster. I didn't understand what was going on, as it looked like he was smelling the animal. I knew he didn't have any pets, so no matter how much I tried, my mind couldn't explain what was going on. I remember ignoring it and going back to sleep, as since we didn't talk anymore, I knew asking would do me no good. As the months went by, Benjamin became worse, as whatever was ailing him made him look depleted. It was obvious he needed something he wasn't able to get due to the lockdown. And the lack of whatever it was that he needed began to mess him up. Once again, I tried to ask because I really wanted to help him, but all my efforts were in vain. I remember telling him, "Just tell me what it is, man. I'm here to help you, and I can't do that if I don't know what it is." But as usual, nothing but silence answered me, as Benjamin had become mute. Little did I know that by the end of the week, I would soon find out what he wanted. And it was something that I didn't want to give. It was on a Friday night. I had spent the whole day playing video games. As like everyone, I was inside all day and there was nothing else to do. I remember walking into the kitchen and I saw Benjamin standing there with a knife clenched in his hand. He was breathing hard and his eyes were bloodshot red. I remember asking him, "What the fuck are you doing, man? I know you've been acting weird, but don't play like that." And that's when he looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, "I really don't want to hurt you, man, but I've tried and it's not working. I've tried getting it from rodents, but it's not the same. I need this, man, even if it's just a little." As he spoke, I could see the pain in his eyes and I could tell that he was fighting with whatever was controlling him. I remember walking closer to where he was standing and telling him, "Look, man, I don't completely understand what you're saying, but I'm your brother, man, and I'm here to help, if you'd let me." And as I approached him to touch his shoulder, he viciously swung the knife at me. I narrowly dodged the attack, and before I could say anything, he attacked me again. I saw the look in his eyes, and I realized that whatever he had been fighting with for the past few months had completely taken over, and if I didn't defend myself, my roommate was going to kill me. He attacked me numerous times before I finally managed to get a hold of the knife, and we began to struggle. We struggled for a while as I fought to take the knife away from him, and as I was about to pry the weapon out of his hands, that was when Benjamin kicked me in the shin. The pain made me let go of the knife, and without thinking, he struck me again. This time, I wasn't quick enough to dodge it, and I felt the blade connect with my arm. And within seconds, blood was everywhere. My arm began to sting with pain as a pool of blood was forming on the floor. The scene was ghastly, but I wasn't ready for what happened next. As I watched my roommate Benjamin rush to the floor where the little pool of blood had formed, and with no hesitation, he put his head close to it and he began to inhale vigorously. The sight was sickening, as his face was covered in blood as he continued to sniff and inhale the blood like it was a delectable dish. with a wonderful aroma. I was transfixed by the horrific scene for a few seconds, but I eventually got myself up, and I reached for the nearest lamp, and I brought it down on his head with all the force I could muster. He was immediately knocked out. Before I could move, the apartment was filled with the campus security guards, as the noise had attracted them. After explaining what had just happened, Benjamin was restrained, and I was bandaged up. I couldn't stay in my apartment that night, as it was searched. Numerous dead hamsters were found in our apartment, and each of them were perforated to death, as there were numerous holes found on their bodies. I was dumbfounded and confused, as I had no idea what was going on. I was told I couldn't stay in my apartment until I was allowed to. After a while, I was called in for questioning by the campus security, and I retold the experience that happened the day before. I remember asking, "What about Benjamin? What happened to him? Why did he attack me? Is he okay?" The campus security guard then replied with, "I can tell you guys were close, so I'll tell you. For the past 2 years, numerous cases of attacks have been reported around the campus as people were knocked unconscious, and when they woke up, they all found numerous small cuts on their bodies. We have been trying to find out who the attacker was for a while now, but after yesterday's event, and in addition, your statement and his confession, we realized that it was Benjamin Robinson." I remember asking, "Why is he doing this? Is he a killer?" And that's when he replied to me with, "No, kid, your friend isn't a killer. He isn't a cannibal either. Rather, he's just a struggling addict." "An addict?" I asked, and that's when it was revealed that Benjamin had a morbid addiction of sniffing blood. It was something along the lines of inhalant abuse. But it was different, as it's really rare to see blood being used as an inhalant. I was told Benjamin was taken to receive medical help, as he couldn't help himself. When the campus security guard was done, I remember saying, "I thought I knew him." And that's when the officer said, "Well, man, you always think you know someone." The experience was a real eye-opener for me, because I had lived with him for over 3 years, and I never realized that he had this addiction. I guess the moral of it all is that we should all keep an eye on our loved ones, as they may be putting up a facade, and we never know which one of them is struggling with demons. I don't really get the hype, I said to myself as I watched my coworkers chat with excitement about potential travel destinations, as we were just given 4 weeks off for a vacation. My name is Blake Wyatt, and in all 31 years of my life, I really didn't get the point of traveling. In truth, I saw it as a waste of time, as I'd rather spend all my time working. After work that day, I walked home with my friend Matt, and we began to have a conversation. "So, any plans for a holiday, Blake?" "Yes, I'm going to see my doctor. I have an appointment tomorrow." My friend Matt laughed and continued with, "Look, Blake, I know you don't like traveling, but it's really fun if you give it a chance. Let me know if you change your mind. We could go somewhere together." After a while, I finally reached home, and I bid him goodbye. As I laid on my bed that night, I knew my views on traveling wasn't going to change. But little did I know that by tomorrow, I'll be buying my first ticket to go to an unforgettable solo trip. The next morning, I went for my doctor's appointment. I had been having some heartaches for the past few weeks, and I decided to check it out. My doctor ran some tests on me, and when the results came back, I was told that due to my incessant working, I had high stress levels. My doctor told me that I'd have to take it easy from now on. He then recommended a vacation, a trip to de-stress. "I know you have some time off from work. Maybe find a resort or a spa and take the time to take care of yourself." Going home that night, I realized that no matter how unimportant I thought traveling was, my health was a priority. So I began to surf the internet, and it didn't take long before I came across an article. The article talked about a place called the Serene Resort. It was located in the wilderness, and it had a slogan that read, "Find the peace and calmness you so desperately need." I read more about it, and it had nothing but stellar reviews. So without wasting any more time, I booked a flight ticket to leave the very next day. When I arrived at the resort, I noticed that it had a beautiful and serene environment. I spent the first week participating in yoga-like activities and meditation. And while I did everything I was supposed to, I realized that it wasn't helping, as I was still stressed. I decided to continue trying,
so I stayed there for an extra week. By the third week, I was surprised to see my friend Matt arrive at the resort. "What are you doing here, man?" "I heard you traveled here due to stress, so I decided to come keep you company on your solo trip." Even though it was a solo trip, I was glad to see my friend Matt as I needed the company. We spent the third week participating in the numerous activities and having a blast. Once the fourth week arrived, I knew we'd have to go back to work, and while my stress levels had reduced a bit, I knew that I still needed to relax more. One Wednesday afternoon, a man walked up to me and began a conversation. "Are you Mr. Blake?" "Yes, I am. Any problem?" "No, it's just that I heard from the others that you came here to de-stress, and the other activities aren't really working for you." I was a bit baffled as to how he knew, as I hadn't seen him around. But I continued the conversation with, "Yeah, man, don't get me wrong. I am a little de-stressed, but most of the activities aren't really helping me." "Then you're in luck. I'm taking a group of 10 people to the cliffside today. We are going to be doing stress-reducing activities. Think of it like advanced yoga." I felt a bit uneasy as I didn't know if I should accept, but I wanted my health to get better so I could get back to work. So I agreed, and I told myself that the man is probably part of the resort staff. Around 1 p.m. that afternoon, me and a group of people went to the cliffside to participate in the activities. I didn't tell Matt about it as he was doing something else in the resort, so I left a note telling him where I went to, in case he began to look for me. The activity began, and the man told us to stand and meditate. We all did exactly as he ordered. After 20 minutes, I saw the man get out a strange powder from his pocket, and he began to blow it into everyone's face. I thought that was odd, so I asked, "What's the powder for?" "No worries, Mr. Blake. It's just a special powder that helps you relax and clear your mind." Now, I wasn't a yoga or de-stressing activity guru, but I knew that something was off about the powder thing. That's why when he approached me and blew the powder in my face, I moved back a little as not to inhale all of it. When he was done, the man began to smile from ear to ear, and it didn't take long before I began to feel lightheaded and uneasy. I looked around me and I noticed a blank expression on the faces of everyone there. I tried to move, but I couldn't as my legs felt like lead. My heart then began to pace as I knew something was wrong. As I felt my anxiety rise, the strange man who led the activity began to speak. "You are all fools, fools. Don't you have anything better to waste your money on than something like you know you'll never get? I was a child when I figured out that there's truly no peace and serenity in this mad world, and there's no activity or meditation that can give you that peace or calmness you're all looking for." The man looked like a demented person as he spoke, and I knew he used the powder to do something to us. I tried to scream, but my mouth didn't open. I struggled to use my body, but it was to no avail as I was stuck against my own will. The strange man then continued his speech with, "But since you all want it so bad, I'll generously give you all the peace you are looking for. And the one and only way to achieve that is through permanent sleep." As he said the words permanent sleep, fear rippled through my body as I prayed for it to mean something else. The man then pointed to the first woman and told her, "Go to the edge and fall." I watched in horror as a 25-year-old went to the edge of the cliff and jumped off to her death like an obedient child. One by one, he instructed each of them to jump and plummet to their death as the sounds of their bodies hitting the base of the cliff filled the area. I was the last person the man instructed to jump, and like magic, I felt my body began to move. I fought the thing that was compelling me to obey, but it was hopeless as I couldn't help it. I heard the man who ordered me to jump laughing as he walked away. My legs took me to the edge of the cliff, and I began to think about how I never thought in a million years that I would hopelessly watch myself die and do nothing about it. I felt my legs prepare to jump, and I had already accepted my fate. But before I could leap from the edge, strong hands held me and pulled me back. I looked up to see my friend Matt looking at me with confusion before he shouted, "What the fuck do you think you're doing, man?" I wanted to answer, but I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and within seconds, the whole world around me turned dark.
I woke up at the resort with a doctor and Matt beside me. The doctor told me to lay down and take it easy as I just had a cardiac arrest. After a while, a few of the resort officials came and I told them everything that happened. I asked if they knew why I was going to kill myself against my own will, and they told me I was a victim of the drug called devil's breath. The drug was derived from the flower of the barachero shrub, and it has similar effects to that of scopolamine, as when it is used, the victim loses all free will and becomes like an obedient animal. They said it was normally used by thieves to take people's credit cards and empty out their bank accounts, but it was hardly used as a weapon to kill people. The officials then said that in the recent years, numerous bodies have been found at the base of the cliff, and when investigations were carried out, traces of devil's breath were found in their system. They said, with my testimony, a case will be opened up. But to my knowledge, the killer still hasn't been found. This incident made me reconsider a lot of things in my life. I don't work as much as I used to now, as I began to take a lot of time for myself. The near-death experience made me realize how precious my life is, and how it is really important that I enjoyed and took care of it. I used to be roommates with an introvert, which was great since I'm an introvert too. His name was Albert, and we shared an apartment about half an hour away from the university we both attended. Aside from being both introverts, we didn't really have anything else in common, so we mainly left each other alone. We majored in completely different fields too. He was working towards a master's degree in paleontology, while I was studying computer programming, so we didn't even have any classes at the university together. For the longest time, our interactions were limited to eating breakfast together with barely any small talk. Then one day, I left the town for a week due to a family emergency. My grandfather had passed away from a heart attack, and I needed to be with my parents to give them support and grieve with them. Last I heard from Albert, he was busy working on some sort of secret project at the university that he seemed excited about, but wouldn't or couldn't say much about. It wasn't my business, so I didn't pry much about it. I had my own problems back home to deal with anyways. When I returned to our apartment, I found Albert sitting on the couch with a plate of ribs that had been completely picked clean in front of him. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw me, and I noticed for the first time how bright and green they were. Oh, hey there. Hey, Albert. Sorry for coming back unannounced. I couldn't contact your phone. Oh, yeah. My phone was out of batteries. Your phone was out of batteries for 3 whole days? Yeah, I was busy. Most people I knew would have gone crazy if they were away from their phones for more than an hour. Then again, Albert wasn't like most people I knew, so I brushed it off as one of his quirks. Things only got weirder from there, though. Albert was still introverted as he ever was, if not more so. He spent the following days isolated in his room, apparently still working on whatever project the university had given him. Sometimes, I'd even hear him leave the apartment through the front door in the dead of the night, though I never confronted him about it. A few days after coming back home, I was approached at the university after my classes by a professor I'd seen around but never talked to before. He looked like a normal man in his 40s, well-groomed, salt and pepper hair, and wearing a tweed suit that went out of style decades ago. Excuse me, are you James Elric? That's me. Can I help you, sir? Yes, my name is Professor Marshall. I'm Albert Weston's professor. He and I have been working on a very special project for the university. I've been told that you are his roommate. That's right. Is he in trouble? Well, the man paused with a hesitant look on his face. It'll probably be easier to show you than to tell you. Please, come with me to the paleontology department. I was more than a little worried, but did as I was told. If Albert was in trouble, I didn't want to make things worse by refusing to cooperate. Professor Marshall led me across campus to a building I've never bothered to learn existed before. Once we were inside, he scrolled through his phone and handed it to me with its screen showing a photo of a dark-skinned man sleeping on what looked like a metal table. What's this? That's the project Albert and I are working on. You're looking at what was probably the world's most well-preserved mummy, found frozen in the ice in the Himalayas. Was? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. The professor led me past a room where hundreds of fossils were on display, and into a room in the back that read, "Staff only." My curiosity was at its peak when I entered the cold but well-lit storage room where countless fossils were kept in sterile white cabinets. He led me to the very end of the room and stopped next to a cabinet, which housed a single box the size and length of a human coffin. He pulled the box out and gently laid it on the floor as I watched on. "I must warn you, what you will see might be disturbing, but you need to see it to understand the gravity of the situation." I stared at the coffin-shaped box, overwhelmed by morbid curiosity at what could be inside. "Is that the mummy you were talking about?" "Was." The professor opened the lid to the box and I gasped in surprise and horror at what was inside. The mummy was gone. Most of it, anyways. The only thing left in the box was loose dark skin that once belonged to a human being. It was perfectly intact, save for the area around its mouth. The skin on the face was twisted into a look of terror made all the more horrible by the empty black pits where the eyes should have been. His cheeks had been split open, starting from the corners of his lips and ending at his earlobes. We found the mummy like this the night after Albert was studying it here alone. I've tried to contact him about it, but he wouldn't pick up his phone. Can you bring him to me so I can talk to him about this? I'd like to hear how it became like this from him, but I don't want to contact the police if I don't have to. Oh, of course. I'm sure he has an explanation for this. He can just be a little shy around people is all. I led Professor Marshall to our apartment and let him inside. I knew Albert had to be home because his shoes were still next to the door, so I went straight to his room and knocked on the door. "Hey Albert, are you there?" "Yeah," said his voice from the other side of the door. "Professor Marshall's here to talk to you. Something about the project you were working on?" "I promise, Albert, I won't be mad," the professor assured him. I just want to ask you about what happened." A tense silence fell on the apartment. Professor Marshall and I looked at each other in concern. Before I could say anything to Albert again, an ear-splitting scream caused us both to double over, clutching our ears. It started out sounding like Albert's voice, but grew so shrill and loud that it didn't even sound human anymore. I tried to force the door open, but found the door locked. By the time Professor Marshall and I were able to force the door open by bashing the knob with a fire extinguisher, the screaming had stopped. The curtains of the open window were rustling in the wind when we entered, and laying on the bloodied white bed was Albert's skin. Like the mummy back at the university, his cheeks had been split wide open as if something had forced in or out of him through his mouth. What little was left of his face was twisted into a look of sheer terror, with soulless black pits where his bright green eyes once were. Professor Marshall and I called the police, but as expected, they couldn't make heads or tails of the situation. One officer even had to throw up in my bathroom. I've tried to forget about what happened, but I'm reminded of Albert and the thing that was pretending to be him every time I walk past his room. Whatever was inside the mummy Professor Marshall and Albert were studying, it wasn't content to stay there. And it's probably hungry after being asleep for so long. Stereotypically, there aren't many professions that are described as bad. But let's take dentists, for example. They are branded as these evil people, and sometimes the same treatment is given to doctors. But never teachers, as they are normally painted as good and chill people. But my experience with one of them is very far from good. I once had a friend in high school, and his name was Mason Jacob. Mason wasn't a good student, as he always had problems with most of the teachers, as they all believed he was an unteachable brat. He also couldn't focus in class, so his grades were constantly bad, and he would normally hide his report cards from his parents. But even in all this, Mason was a good person, and he was one of my best friends. We met at a pretty young age, as we'd basically known each other since childhood. He was a bit of a troublemaker, and I really didn't mind that, as I thought that gave his personality some spunk. All through our friendship, I noticed that people, be it teachers or friends, always gave up on Mason. They thought he was irredeemable or unfixable, as you'd often hear people tell him, "There's just no fixing you, Mason." But he always smiled and shrugged it off most of the times. He would tell me, "School doesn't define me. I don't need to know some nerdy stuff to be somebody. And I always believed him, as I saw something different in him, something special. And I knew that even if he didn't do great at school, or even if he wasn't fixable, Mason was going to go on and do some great things in life. At least, that's what I thought. But little did I know that during the next school year, there would be a new substitute teacher, one with adamant intent on fixing Mason for good. The arrival of Miss Valerie brought a slew of changes to our high school. She was a new substitute teacher, and with one look at her, I knew something wasn't right. She was, in one word, perfect. As she portrayed the perfect teacher role, she smiled all the time. She didn't shout even when provoked, and unlike other teachers, she didn't really have anything bad about her. Now, I'd seen a lot of fake people to know that she was putting up an act, as I could instantly tell that she wasn't this way when students weren't around. But I didn't say anything. I remember she'd always say, "I'm just here to make sure you understand everything you've been taught." Due to the wonderful facade she put on, and everyone loved her. Well, everyone, except for me and Mason. As I said earlier, Mason was a huge troublemaker, and even though I loved him, he was insufferable, and he was a bane to every teacher at school. And with Miss Valerie, it wasn't any different. I remember he had her class in the afternoon, and Mason was making it really hard for her. He was constantly making jokes and snarky comments throughout the class, and he constantly kept interrupting her to say, "I don't understand anything you're saying." I remember her finally having enough and saying, "Can you please understand, Mason?" And then he replied, "And what if I don't want to understand?" And that's when, with a cold voice, she replied, "Then I'll make you understand." The class went silent after that, as the words left the air a bit tense. After the class, I saw her telling Mason to meet her tomorrow after school, as she wants to go over the topics he didn't understand with him. While we walked back home, we began to talk about the class that day, and I vividly remember telling him, "Be careful with Miss Valerie, man. She isn't like the other teachers. She's different, I can tell." He then replied with, "Don't worry about me, man. These teachers are all the same. I'll probably annoy her out of her mind, and then she'll give up on me like the rest. Trust me." I then remembered I had left one of my books in class, so I told Mason to walk on while I run back to get it. As I approached the class, I began to hear the sound of something bashing against the table. I knew someone was inside the empty classroom, so I decided to check and see. I opened the door a little and peeped in, and what I saw made my tummy churn. It was Miss Valerie, and she was repeatedly bashing her head against the table as she mumbled the words, "They'll understand. They'll all understand." I could see colorful pushpins that were lying on the table sticking out of her face as she continued to bang her head on the table. Her face was a bit bloody as the continuous impact of the pins that were sticking out of her face hitting the table made her bleed. The sight made me want to throw up. I immediately ran back outside to tell Mason, but he wasn't there. I walked home that day with nothing but that horrific sight on my mind. I was completely zoned out the next day during classes. I tried to speak to Mason about what I saw, but he thought I was just being overprotective. "Stop making up stuff, man. I'll be fine." When school was over, I saw Mason go into a class with Miss Valerie. I knew he told me not to be worried, but as the horrible scene from yesterday flooded into my mind, I knew I had to make sure nothing happened, and I decided to wait for him. I waited outside on the school grounds. The after-school class was meant to be for 30 minutes, so when it'd been an hour, I knew something was up. I decided to go inside and check. This time, I didn't peek as I rushed in to see if he was okay. And just like the day before, another horrific scene played out before me. But this time, it was much more worse. I saw Mason's deformed corpse propped up beside a table. His skull was broken open, and I saw a bloody Miss Valerie fiddling around in his head as she was shoving what seemed to be pieces of paper into his open head while saying, "You understand, don't you? You understand, don't you?" As she spoke to his bloody corpse, I looked to her left and I saw that there was a bloody bat lying on the floor. I could see blood splattered everywhere as it made the classroom look like a butcher's house. The scene made my tummy churn, and after taking it all in, that's when I began to scream. She quickly noticed me as she hadn't seen me standing there before. She then looked at me and said, "Oh, hi, Matt. I didn't see you there." As I looked at her, I realized that she spoke like everything was normal and like there wasn't a bloody corpse beside her. She continued with, "I'm just making sure your friend Mason here gets as much knowledge as possible." With that, she gestured to Mason's open skull that was now filled with bloody textbook pages. "You understand, don't you?" I began to back away, and that's when she began to scream. "Why don't you understand? Why, I understand." And that's when I replied, "You killed my friend, you sick psycho! I'm calling the cops." That's when I knew I made the wrong decision, as she slowly picked up the bat and said, "Then I'll make sure you understand too." I began to bolt to the door, but before I could reach it, she was already beside me, and with no hesitation, she struck me with a bat. I used my arm to shield my face, and once that bat landed on my arm, I felt my bone break. Ignoring the pain, I tackled her and we began to struggle. She was incredibly strong as she began to overpower me. I didn't want to hit her as I knew I couldn't hit a woman, but I also knew that if I didn't do anything, she was going to kill me the same way she had just killed Mason. I remember kicking her with all my strength, and the kick landed really hard. As I kicked her in the belly, the force of the kick threw her back as she hit her head on a shelf before falling to the floor. I could tell she wasn't moving, and the scene transfixed me for a moment as I thought I killed her. But without thinking, my feet began to run out of the classroom. I ran and I took out my phone to call the cops. They arrived quickly. But by the time we went to the class to see what had happened, all we met there was Mason's corpse in an empty, bloody classroom. A search was carried out on school premises, but Miss Valerie wasn't found. The cops then decided to check the school's surrounding premises. As I was being taken care of by the paramedics, all I could see was Mason's bloody corpse in my head as I began to cry. I told myself that even if Mason was a really mean and insufferable kid, he didn't deserve to die. I had to wear a cast for 2 months after that, as my arm was broken. The cops told the school Miss Valerie still couldn't be found, and the school was closed down for a while after that. I had to go to therapy because of the trauma, and I also had to transfer schools. I still remember Mason every single day, and I guess due to that memory, my relationship with teachers became really strained. Regardless, in the end, I realized that there aren't any bad professions in the world. There are just really bad people. I teach in a middle school as an English teacher. Being the youngest woman in the faculty allows me some unwanted privileges as well as challenges. Almost every male staff gave extra attention when I walked down the corridor, and almost every woman staff envied me for that. I grew up with my dad, who also taught in high school. After his unfortunate demise, I've been on my own. My mom left us for some rich guy when I was 3 years old. My dad was my world. So after his death, I left my hometown and took this teaching job. I have rented an apartment not far from the school building, so my daily routine is quite simple. Being the youngest teacher helps me a lot to get mixed with the kids in school. All the kids love me, and I care for them as well. Except for this one kid in 7th grade. His name is Kurt, and he's the quiet kid in his class. He sits in the corner seat of the last row and stares at me like a statue the entire time. He never talks to any other kids. Not every kid is the same, and some take time to open up to others. I thought Kurt was the same type. Whenever I asked him a question, he hesitated and looked the other way like he can't stand me anymore. I even told our principal about this kid, but he ignored, saying he is just shy. One day after class, I was arranging my books to leave for home when I saw a notebook lying on the last row seat. I walked towards it and realized this seat belongs to Kurt. I was about to open it when I heard a voice behind me. "What are you doing?" I turned around and saw Kurt standing right next to me. He was frowning at me as if I pissed him off. "Is this your notebook?" He didn't reply to me. Without breaking eye contact, he snatched his notebook from my hand and left the classroom. From that day, I started keeping a close eye on this boy. Time passed by, and his behavior grew more suspicious. I realized he is very protective of his notebook. A small incident took over the day that opened my mind about this kid, Kurt. I was heading to the washroom during recess when I saw 3 boys bullying Kurt in the playground. One of them tried to snatch his notebook and they got into a fight. I rushed and stopped them when I noticed Kurt's notebook got damaged from the corner due to the brawl. He gave the bullying kid his death stare and said, "I will make you pay for this." The matter went to the principal's office and both of their parents were called. I was looking for this opportunity for a long time. I really wanted to talk to Kurt's parents and identify what is wrong with him. Surprisingly, Kurt's parents were really jolly and seemed completely normal to me. As I went on asking them how their son behaves at home, they told me he mostly spends his time in his room. He liked scribbling in his notebook, and that's the only thing he is very secretive about. Otherwise, he gives no tantrums like any other kid. His mother asked me if he behaved in class, and I had to say yes because maintaining privacy is nothing wrong. I didn't mention the small incident of me finding his notebook because, in a way, I was the one intruding on his belongings. They took Kurt and went home. While walking away, Kurt turned towards me and for the first time, smiled. But his smile was nothing like an 11-year-old. The next day, I gave the kids an assignment. I told them to write an essay stating things I like about school. Everyone started writing with great enthusiasm. Only Kurt kept looking out the window. I walked to him and said, "Aren't you going to write?" "Write what?" "Things you like about school." "I don't like anything about school." "But you have to write something. I need to grade this paper." "I am sure you'll come up with something." I came back to my seat and saw Kurt starting to write with an angry face. As time went by, everyone started to come to my desk and hand in their essays. Kurt went to the washroom once, and taking that opportunity, I walked to his desk to take a look at his essay. He was writing about some pretty basic things, and I felt he was finally trying to get along here, when my eyes went to a sheet of paper peeking out from his notebook. The paper had my name as the title, which shocked me. So without saying anything, I took that paper out and found it was actually a bunch of paper stapled together like a thin magazine. By the time Kurt came back, I was back in my seat. The class got over and they left for home. Kurt failed to notice that I took something that belonged to him. I stayed back to read that mysterious collection of papers I got from his notebook. As soon as I made sure all the kids were gone, I took out the stapled papers. The first page was more like a cover. It was titled, "My English Teacher." I was completely shocked to find Kurt writing about me. My curiosity peeked in and I turned the cover page. There were a few lines written on the top and pictures were drawn under them. Page 1. "I hate school. The only reason I go to school is to see my English teacher. I like staring at her the entire time she teaches. She talks a lot, which annoys me." Under that, a picture was drawn. Students were sitting in a class and a tiny human figure standing near the board was teaching them. I had no problem realizing that it was me. I felt a bit weird and moved to the next page. Page 2. "Today she asked me a question and made me stand up to answer it. Her face is so ugly that I turned to the other side, but she went on forcing me to answer it. Sometimes I feel like strangling her when she talks too much." Beneath that, my avatar was drawn that he used in the first picture, and ropes were tied to my neck like I was being strangled. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I went on reading this. On the third page, Kurt wrote, "I forgot my notebook on my desk today. As I came back to the class, I saw she was standing near my desk with my notebook in her hand. If I had a knife with me, I would have stabbed her in the back right then." This time, the drawing had me standing facing my back at the classroom door, while Kurt stood near it, holding a sharp knife, posed like he is ready to stab me. My heartbeat got faster. This kid is a psychopath. I got chills to my bones thinking, behind those lonely, innocent eyes, he was planning my murder all this time? I finally arrived at the last page, and I couldn't breathe anymore. My eyes trembled in fear as I saw my avatar laying on the empty classroom floor, submerged in the blood that he painted with crayons. Blood was everywhere, on the walls, on the seats. Kurt's tiny figure stood right next to me, holding a blood-soaked knife. There was a huge grin on his face, like he is finally happy. There were 2 lines written under that drawing. "The day I do this, I'll hate school no more. After her, I will go for those bullies. I'll make everyone hate school." I wiped the drops of sweat from my forehead and got up. I walked to the principal's room, and luckily, he was still there, busy on paperwork. I showed him Kurt's malevolent works, and he called his parents immediately. They were informed about their son's mental state. His mom broke into tears, and his father didn't speak for at least 10 minutes after reading those papers. Meanwhile, Kurt was taken under watch by 2 school securities. After proper consultation, the school decided to send him to a mental facility so that he can be treated before he ends up killing someone in real life. I didn't wait to see all this, and I never confronted that boy even after all this. I shifted to another school in Pasadena, as being in that same environment was too much for me. It has been 7 years since that incident, and based on my calculations, Kurt must have turned 18 this year. I haven't thought about this incident for a while, until this morning. I came to check my mailbox outside and found a postcard. There was no name of the sender. Only one sentence was written on it. It read, "I still wonder how your blood will smell when I stab you at the back." Every year on October 31st, I feel nothing but crippling fear. In truth, I'm not afraid of the supposed ghouls that roam the night. Neither am I afraid of the evil demons that come to take us in the scary tales we tell. There's nothing I fear more than the pitter-patter of little children's feet roaming the street asking for candy. And this gruesome experience will tell you why. This incident happened 3 years ago. I had just bought a newly remodeled house. As I stood in the hallway of my new home, only 2 words ran through my mind. It's beautiful. I had been eyeing the house for a while now and immediately got an opportunity to buy it. I did. The house wasn't only beautiful, it had a reasonable price too, as apparently it had been in a terrible fire, one of which I didn't know the details of. But due to that incident, the house's value was reduced, thus making it cheap, which was one of my incentives to get it in the first place. Buying the house and moving into a new neighborhood was the beginning of a fresh start for me and my 1-year-old daughter, Elizabeth Foster. Being a single mother wasn't easy, but my little baby girl was the light of my life, and I swore to give her the best that I could. The first few months were nothing but perfect. I had completely settled down, and I had made a lot of friends around the neighborhood. After the summer, autumn was fast approaching, and with it, the Halloween season. Decorations began to go up, and I became excited to spend my first Halloween in the new neighborhood. It was on the 31st of October, 2013. The day started out great as people in costumes filled the streets. By the time it was 5:30, I began to hear knocking at the door. I opened up to see the cutest children in costumes, and with a big smile, they said, "Trick or treat." I gladly obliged, and I gave them as much candy as I could. The following hours went the same way as the knocks on the door just kept coming. I didn't complain as the sight warmed my heart, and I began to think how adorable my own daughter would be when she's old enough to dress up and go out for her first trick-or-treating. I stayed up giving out candy till it was really late, and at around 10 p.m., the knocks on the door had stopped. I realized I was out of candy, and I decided to call it a night. So I turned off the lights before going to check on my sleeping daughter in her room. After that, I brushed my teeth and I went to bed. I didn't sleep for long before I was abruptly awoken by loud knocks at the door. I looked at the clock beside my bed and it was 12:01 a.m. Perplexed at who was knocking at this hour, I went down to check. I opened the door to see 2 children. It was dark, so I couldn't make out their faces well. The first child was a boy who I assumed was 9 years old, and he held the hand of the second child, a 5-year-old girl who I assumed was his sister. Before I could say anything, they both said, "Trick or treat," in unison. I was completely baffled to see children out at this time, as it was extremely late, so I blurted out, "Whoa, it's really late, kids. I'm guessing you guys should go home. I'm all out of candy." I couldn't see their faces well, but I could tell that they were angry at the fact that I didn't have any candy to give them. so they frowned their faces and said, "Trick or treat." I could notice the anger in their voice as they said that, and I began to get scared, so I said, "You kids should really go home. It's not safe out here, and it's no time for pranks." Nothing but silence answered me as the children stood there staring at me with a hint of anger in their eyes. I assumed they were still trying to pull a prank, so I bid them goodnight before closing the door. I began to make my way upstairs, thinking about how odd the recent occurrence was, and before I could reach my room, I began to hear noises coming from the kitchen. Thinking they were burglars, I rushed down to see what was going on. I reached there to see the two children I just saw outside inside my kitchen, and one of them now held a lighter in their hand. The smell of gas began to fill the room as I looked to the gas cooker and realized it was on full blast. Before I could utter a single word, I heard the sound of the lighter, and I watched my house go up in flames. Within seconds, the fire had spread everywhere as I was surrounded by flames. I watched in horror as my home began to burn. I looked forward to see the children, who were now engulfed in flames, begin to laugh. I watched as the fire peeled off their skin and the smell of burning flesh began to fill the room. But to my horror, the children who were still completely unfazed continued to laugh as they were burnt alive. The scene was ghastly and it transfixed me for a while. I began to hear little screams from upstairs and I realized my daughter was still in her room. "Lizzie!" Before rushing upstairs to her room, before I could reach the door, a huge chunk of burning debris fell from the roof and blocked my path. I tried to maneuver the blockade, but there was no way as the entrance was completely blocked. I tried to get back down the stairs to get some help, but the stairway was blocked too as the flames were everywhere and the ceiling had begun to crumble around me. In that moment, I felt nothing but helplessness, hopelessness, and despair as her screams filled the house. Nothing in this world can be compared to what I was feeling as I heard her die and not being able to do anything about it. The pain was unbearable as I was her mother, and in some way, I also felt her die. The smoke began to rise and breathing became extremely hard. I began to choke as I fell to the floor. The world around me began to fade away, and I was beginning to give in. I felt arms grab a hold of me and pick me up from the floor. The following seconds were a blur. But before I knew it, I was out of the house and surrounded by firefighters. I began to scream. "My daughter is still inside! Help her!" They began to rush back in, but the house began to collapse on itself, and I knew it was hopeless. As I watched the house crumble with my daughter in it, I felt a piece of me die, and I couldn't do anything but cry my heart out. After a while, my grief began to turn into anger as I cursed the children who did it. I decided to call the cops, as with my daughter gone, the only thing I could get now was justice. They escorted me to the police station, and I gave them my statement. They looked at me like I was crazy when I explained to them that the children were laughing as they burnt alive. But I stuck to my story as I knew what I saw. The cops checked the house, and they said they only found the corpse of my 1-year-old daughter, and no other bodies were found. Knowing that they escaped made me more angry, so I demanded that they were found and brought to justice. I was then told to describe the children to the police sketch artist. I tried my best to tell them every detail I could remember, as I didn't see the children well. It took about 3 hours for the sketches to be finished. When it was done, all the cops looked baffled as they saw the final sketch. I was confused as they all began to look at me like I was mad. The elderly cop then asked me, "Are you sure these are the children you saw?" Angered and frustrated, I screamed back, "Yes, it's them. I know what I saw. Now can you please find them and bring them to justice?" The cop then looked at me and said, "Well, that's impossible, ma'am, because if these are the kids you saw, I can assure you that they couldn't have done it, as I knew them very well." I knew something was wrong when he used the word knew, but before I could say anything, he continued with, "These kids perfectly match the description of the Johnsons' children, and the Johnsons are the family who formerly lived in the house that you currently reside in. I can assure you that it is completely impossible that these kids were responsible for the fire, as the family had all horrifically died in a similar house fire 5 years ago." Completely baffled and with nothing to say, I stood up and left the station. While I knew it defied all logic that dead children were responsible for the arson, a part of me believed it, as the odd things I saw that night began to make sense to me. After burying my daughter, I left town to move back in with my mother. Most days, I tell myself that it's too bad there's no justice system for the restless spirits that roam the world, as there was nothing I could do to find solace. Sometimes, I find myself thinking back to that day and wishing I had given them some candy, as I knew that if I did, they would have left me and my daughter alone. I hope my story is a lesson to all of you, as I urge you to fill your house this October with candy and treats to give, as it's better to give a treat than to experience the gruesome trick.